Chapter 129. Father, General Qin, General Cheng, young master, it's time to eat. Han Yushi walked in with 2 plates of dishes and shouted. She placed the dishes on the table, and turned back to the kitchen to get the rest of the dishes. General Qin, General Cheng, young master, come to the table and eat. Han Lijing stood up and called out. Qin Shubao and Cheng Yaojin nodded. Li Zixuan stood up and said, I'll help Yushi serve the dishes. After saying that, he did not wait to refuse and directly chased after Han Yushi into the kitchen. This! Han Lijing stretched out his hand and wanted to stop him, but it was too late. He, brother Tianhu, just let little Xian go. Haha, I think it won't be long before I attend your wedding. I wonder if old Han's family has a daughter, Red? Cheng Yaojin winked and laughed mischievously. After Qin Xiong heard this, he suddenly understood. He smiled and looked at the direction Li Zixuan disappeared in thoughtfulness. Ah, young master, why are you in the kitchen again? Han Yushi had just entered the kitchen when she heard footsteps coming from behind. She turned around and realized that it was Li Zixuan. She was shocked. Yushi, let me tell you a secret. In order to avoid being chased out again, Li Zixuan pretended to be mysterious and said, What secret? Han Yushi's curiosity was piqued as she asked doubtfully. Come closer, I'll tell you. Li Zixuan hooked his finger and pretended to be careful as he said. Han Yushi hesitated. If she really leaned over, it would be too ambiguous. However, she saw Li Zixuan's mysterious face, as if he really had something important to tell her. She thought for a long time, but in the end, she could not hold back the curiosity in her heart. She leaned her ear over and said shyly, Young master, tell me quickly. My father and the others are still waiting to eat. Li Zixuan was about to speak when he smelled a charming fragrance. He thought to himself that there was no shower gel or shampoo in ancient times. He did not know where the fragrance on Han Yushi's body came from. He caught a glimpse of Han Yushi's tender and fair neck and sparkling earlobes. For a moment, he could not help but feel a little move. He really wanted to kiss her neck and earlobes. Han Yushi was tickled by Li Zixuan's hot breath beside her ear, but she waited for a long time and did not hear Li Zixuan speak. She thought that Li Zixuan was deliberately teasing her, and she could not help but feel a little embarrassed. When Li Zixuan saw that Han Yushi was about to turn her head, he hurriedly swallowed the saliva in his mouth. He forcefully suppressed the thoughts in his heart and said in a low voice, Yushi, in a moment, Duke Yi wants to recognize you as his adopted daughter. You have to be mentally prepared. What? When Han Yushi heard this, she did not care about the shyness in her heart and asked in disbelief. Li Zixuan smiled and said, What I said is true. Let's take the dishes out quickly. After saying that, he did not care about Han Yushi, who was still in a daze at the side. He carried 2 plates of dishes and went out. Sigh, Han Yushi reacted and was about to ask Li Zixuan to put down the dishes, but Li Zixuan had already walked far away. She stomped her feet in anger, but she felt a little sweet in her heart. When the dishes were served, Han Lijing said to Han Yushi, Yushi, father wants to tell you something. Tianhu, let me say it. Qin Xiong waved his hand and interrupted. Then, he looked at Han Yushi and asked, Yushi, my wife and I want to take you in as our adopted daughter. We just discussed it with your father and he agreed. What do you think? Although Han Yushi had just heard Li Zixuan mention this in the kitchen, she still could not hide her surprise when she heard Qin Shubao say it himself. She looked at her father hesitantly, hoping to get some pointers from him. Seeing Han Lijing gently nod his head, Han Yushi bowed and said, Yushi greets foster father. Haha, good child, quickly get up. Qin Xiong laughed heartily, but it was not appropriate for him to pull her up. He could only tell Han Yushi to get up quickly. Han Yushi stood up and poured a cup of tea for Qin Xiong. She raised it with both hands and bowed as she said, Foster father, please have some tea. Qin Xiong was grinning from ear to ear. He took the teacup, took a sip, and put it down. He said, Good child, go to the Qin manor to visit your foster mother another day. She likes a sensible daughter like you very much. Yes, foster father, Qin Xiong said with a smile. All right, you will be my daughter from now on. If anyone dares to bully you, just tell me. I will definitely uphold justice for you. Han Yushi's heart warmed as she thanked him sincerely. Thank you, foster father. Haha, second brother Qin, you have taken in an adopted daughter today. This is a joyous occasion. We must drink to our heart's content. Brother Tianhu, don't you think so? Haha. Cheng Yaojin laughed heartily. He looked at the delicious food on the table and thought of the wine Li Zishuan brought. He could not help but want to eat. General Cheng is right. I must toast to the two generals today. Han Lijing smiled. Cheng Yaojin could not wait and said, Haha, Xiao Xian, quickly take out the good wine you brought. Li Zishuan smiled as he went to take 2 pots of wine and put them on the table. He said to Qin Shubao, bad wine will hurt your stomach. Uncle Qin, your old injury has not healed yet. You should not drink this kind of strong wine. You should drink the fruit wine. Qin Shubao opened his mouth and looked depressed. However, in his opinion, Li Zishuan was equivalent to half a doctor. He could not refute and could only nod helplessly. Cheng Yaojin glared and said, Xiao Xian, the medicinal wine you took before, second brother Qin was fine after drinking it. Why can't he drink it now? Qin Shubao's eyes lit up when he heard this. He looked at Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan still shook his head and said, Uncle Cheng, these are 2 different things. The wine in the medicinal wine is just a catalyst. The main body is still medicine. Uncle Qin's old injury is very bad for his recovery if he drinks this kind of strong wine. Yushi, go and get some fruit wine. I will drink with Uncle Qin. Han Yushi responded and went to the inner room to get the fruit wine. Cheng Yaojin could only say gloomily, forget it. Brother Tianhu, let's drink a few cups today. Haha, I dare not to. After the meal, Cheng Yaojin and Han Lijing were both drunk. After all, the immortal drunk was too strong. The other 3 people in the room looked at the 2 drunk people and smiled bitterly at each other. Alas, there was no other way. Li Zishuan could only do this kind of hard work himself. He could not let the sick Qin Shu Bao and the weak Han Yushi go. Li Zishuan dragged the 2 into the room and threw them on the bed to let them rest. Xiao Xian, Yushi, go to your work. I will walk around the Han family manor. When Jijia wakes up, we will go back to Chang'an. Qin Xiong remembered the strange words Cheng Yaojin said and wanted to matchmake them. He also felt that Li Zishuan had a good character. If he could be together with Han Yushi, it would be a good thing. Li Zishuan quickly said, Uncle Qin, please be careful. Han Yushi also said with concern, Godfather, your body is not well yet. Why don't I go with you? Qin Xiong quickly waved his hand and said, No, your godfather is much better now. It's okay. If he let Han Yushi come, wouldn't his efforts be wasted? So he quickly left the courtyard after saying that. P.S. The subscription data is terrible. Readers who like this book, please pay a few cents to subscribe so that Swordsman will have the motivation to continue writing. Thank you. I can't continue writing like this. Please subscribe. Don't read the pirated version. Brothers, you still have to subscribe when you need to. Chapter 130. Yushi, do you want to enter the city with me today? We can go to Uncle Qin's house and visit Aunt Qin. In the courtyard, a man and a woman were alone. It was very ambiguous. Li Zishuan really wanted to spend the rest of his life quietly with Han Yushi. Han Yushi looked at Li Zishuan, who was sitting on the swing beside her. She felt a little amused. This swing was tied to the iron egg by Han Lijing in the past. Now Li Zishuan was sitting on it to play. Her young master was sometimes mature and steady, but sometimes he was like a child. Hearing Li Zishuan's words, Han Yushi thought for a while and replied, Young master, when you go back today, it will definitely be late. If I go, I probably won't be able to make it back in time, so I'll go tomorrow. Li Zishuan subconsciously wanted to say, if you can't go back, then stay at my house. However, he was afraid that he would offend the beauty, so he could only swallow the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Then you have to be careful when you go alone tomorrow. Or you can go with the farmer who is going to the market tomorrow. Li Zishuan thought for a while and still instructed. He still had no clue about the martial arts expert who stole the wine that Han Lijing mentioned last time. He always felt that the person's goal was not that simple. Han Yushi's heart warmed. She replied softly, "Young master, don't worry. Yushi will be careful." Li Zishuan's heart was slightly relieved. He looked up at Han Yushi, who was holding the rope of the swing. Suddenly, his childish heart was awakened. He smiled and said, "Yushi, sit on top. I'll help you on the swing." Han Yushi frowned and said, "Young master, this is for children. Who said that this thing can only be played by children? Didn't you see that I played with it just now?" Han Yushi was speechless. "Come up quickly. If you don't come up, I'll carry you up." Li Zishuan was a little unrestrained at this moment. "Don't, I'll go up myself." "Ah, young master, put me down quickly. It's too high." Han Yushi closed her eyes and grabbed the rope tightly with both hands as she shouted, "Don't worry, I'll protect you. You won't fall." "No, put me down." "Don't, Yushi, don't you think it's very interesting? Don't be afraid. With my martial arts, even if you fall, I can catch you." After a while, Han Yushi finally adapted to this height. She stopped screaming and gradually quietened down. Under the setting sun, a flower-like young girl sat on a swing. Behind her, a handsome man was slowly pushing the swing. Both of them were silently enjoying this rare tranquility and warmth. Cough cough. Qin Xiong felt that he had returned late enough, but he did not expect to see something that he should not have seen. He hurriedly coughed twice to remind them that someone had come. Han Yushi was like a frightened rabbit. She hurriedly grabbed Li Zishuan's hand and signaled him to stop pushing. Then, Han Yushi got off the swing. Li Zishuan only felt a burst of warmth and smoothness in his hand, and he couldn't help but stop. Then, the wonderful touch disappeared, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. "Godfather, you're back." Han Yushi clenched her hands and greeted Qin Xiong like a child who had done something wrong. "Yes, I'm back." Qin Xiong naturally pretended that he didn't see anything and replied, "Uncle Qin, how was your tour of the manor?" Li Zishuan spoke to hide his awkwardness. When Qin Xiong heard this, he stroked his beard and said half-jokingly, "This old man discovered that the villagers of this Han manor are clearly much wealthier than the people in other manors. Xiao Xian, you're a good landlord." Li Zishuan chuckled and said, "You're flattering me." Qin Xiong wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he said, "Little Xian, come out with me. I have something to ask you." With that, he walked out of the courtyard, leaving Li Zishuan with his back. Li Zishuan looked at Han Yushi and said, "Yushi, I'm going out for a while. Go and see if Uncle Han and Uncle Cheng are awake." Han Yushi nodded. At the same time, she was a little nervous. She didn't know what her godfather wanted to say to Li Zishuan. Could it be that he and she? "Aya, please don't be like that." Han Yushi blushed at the thought of this and hurried into the house. Outside the courtyard, Qin Xiong stood under a tree with his hands behind his back, waiting for Li Zishuan to come over. "Uncle Qin, why are you looking for me?" Qin Xiong turned around and looked at Li Zishuan. He asked with a serious face, "Little Xian, tell me the truth. Why are you raising so many chickens?" Li Zishuan said curiously, "Uncle Qin, didn't I already say it at the morning court? You were there too." Qin Xiong shook his head and said, "I believed you before, but I went to the chicken farm in the back mountain of the Han Manor today. I don't believe your excuses now. Tell me the truth." Li Zishuan asked curiously, "Why?" Qin Xiong sneered, "You're still lying to me. I just went up the mountain to take a look." Every chicken farm on the mountain has a person training the chickens. If it's just because of the 2 reasons you mentioned before, why do you have to do this? What are you hiding? Can you tell me? Li Zishuan suddenly understood. So this was the problem. However, he really couldn't tell anyone about the locust plague. Otherwise, there would be trouble. He was in a dilemma. Uncle Qin, you're right. This matter is indeed not that simple. However, please forgive me for not being able to tell you the real reason. Li Zishuan gritted his teeth. Qin Xiong heard this and quickly stepped forward. He grabbed Li Zishuan's arm and said anxiously, "What can't you tell me? I'm not a talkative person. Don't you trust me?" Li Zishuan hurriedly waved his hand and explained, "It's not like that. Uncle Qin, don't misunderstand. I definitely don't mean that. It's just that I really can't tell anyone about this. Uncle, please don't make things difficult for me." Qin Xiong released his hand and turned around. He looked at the setting sun and sighed. "Forget it, I won't force you. However, I feel that something big is going to happen behind this. This old man joined the army when he was young, and after many twists and turns, he finally joined the Great Tang. After hundreds of battles, the world was finally at peace. Even if this old man fell ill, this old man has no regrets, because the Han people can finally settle down and recuperate. Little Xian, you're the disciple of an immortal. You may not know the suffering of the human world. A few years ago, the world was in chaos and the Central Plains was empty. People's lives were worse than dogs. I really can't bear to see the people suffer. Because the people's suffering is the shame of us Tang Empire soldiers. We didn't protect them well." Qin Xiong turned around and stared into Li Zishuan's eyes. He said seriously, "I've heard that spiritual master Ling Su is one of the immortals. He has great wisdom and ability. As his disciple, you must know many things. I don't care what you're hiding, but I hope that before you do anything, you can consider the people's lives. The people have suffered enough." Chapter 131. Under the tree outside the Han family's courtyard, the old man and the young man were silent. Finally, Qin Xiong broke the silence. He looked up at the sky and said, "It's getting late. Call Jijia. Let's go back to Chang'an." After saying that, he walked towards the courtyard door, leaving behind a bleak figure. Li Zishuan looked at the old man who had fought for the country all his life. He couldn't bear it. Seeing that Qin Xiong was about to reach the door, he said, "Uncle Qin, please wait. I'll tell you the truth." Qin Xiong stomped his feet, turned around and then walked over. He looked at Li Zishuan and nodded with gratification. After saying "good child," he quietly stood to the side and listened to Li Zishuan continue. Li Zishuan thought for a moment and said, "Uncle Qin, the reason I have so many chickens is because of a prophecy my master left behind. My master said that in June next year, there will be an unprecedented plague of locusts in the Tang Empire." As Li Zishuan spoke, Qin Xiong's face grew more and more serious. After Li Zishuan finished telling his father the story he had told that night, Qin Xiong couldn't help but point at Li Zishuan and scold him. "You bastard! Why didn't you tell His Majesty about this earlier? Can you bear to watch the people of the other provinces starve to death when the plague of locusts comes? I only realized today that you, Li Zishuan, have such a heart of stone. What good will it do you to let the people starve to death? Could it be that you, the son of an immortal, really want to become an immortal?" Qin Xiong's words pierced Li Zishuan's heart, and Li Zishuan was instantly covered in wounds. He thought of all the hard work he had done in the past few months, only to be criticized by Qin Xiong as selfish. The grievance and anger in his heart immediately gushed out. He could no longer hold it in and roared angrily. "Do you think I want to hide it? If I told His Majesty the truth, would His Majesty believe me? They might even punish my family and implicate my nephew's parents. Moreover, once this matter spreads out, it will surely cause panic among the common people. At that time, countless people will madly fight for food, and it will surely cause the price of food to soar. How can this nephew bear such a crime? Qin Xiong was stunned. Li Zishuan took a deep breath and continued. The plague of locusts is only my master's prophecy. If the plague of locusts doesn't come when the time comes, wouldn't the people of the world have worried for nothing? When that time comes, I will definitely be condemned by everyone and be cursed for eternity. I'll be fine. At worst, I'll be like my master back then, living in seclusion and living a carefree life. But what about my father, mother, and sister? They still had to continue living on the land of the great Tang. Moreover, do you really think this nephew can bear to watch the common people suffer? If that was really the case, then why did that brat bother to raise 150,000 chickens in the Han village and Plum village? Do you think this kid has a heart of stone? Like you, this nephew loves the land of the great Tang and deeply loves the people of the great Tang. This nephew also wants to save them very much. After Li Zishuan finished speaking, he let out a long sigh and leaned against the tree trunk dejectedly. He closed his eyes and said no more. If one looked carefully, one could see that there were tears in his eyes. Qin Xiong stood there with a complicated expression. His expression changed for a while before he finally sighed. He walked over and patted Li Zishuan's shoulder lightly. Little Xian, this old man misunderstood you just now. Please don't take it to heart. Li Zishuan hurriedly said, Uncle Qin, what are you saying? I know that you truly care about the country and the people, and your heart is for the common people. This nephew's tone just now was very offensive. Please don't take it to heart. He had suppressed the matter of the locust plague in his heart for a long time. He knew that what he was doing now could only save a portion of the common people. When the time came, there would still be tens of thousands of common people who would suffer. He felt very uncomfortable, but he had no other choice. Call him selfish or cold-blooded, but he had to consider his family before doing anything. Today, he finally found someone to vent his feelings, but he was criticized. The negative emotions that he had suppressed for a long time finally erupted. Although he felt much better now, he also realized that his tone just now was too harsh. Qin Xiong shook his head and said, It's normal for young people to be angry. This old man will not blame you. But little Xian, is there really no other way? Li Zishuan thought for a while and replied, Since ancient times, haven't the kings of the past been helpless in the face of the locust plague? I also want to save more common people, but this nephew's ability is limited. There really is no other way. Qin Xiong was silent for a long time. Then, he sighed deeply. At this moment, he seemed to have aged 10 years. He angrily punched the tree trunk and said unwillingly, This old man will go back today and draft a secret report. Tomorrow, I will present it to His Majesty. If His Majesty has any blame, this old man will bear it. Li Zishuan was shocked. He waved his hand to stop him and said, Absolutely not. The locust plague is only a prophecy. There is no conclusive evidence. Uncle Qin, please think twice. Don't be rash. Qin Xiong shook his head and said, Little Xian, it's better to believe in this kind of thing than not. Otherwise, when the locust plague really comes, all we can do is wait for death. Moreover, the weather this year is so abnormal. It's just May and it's already so hot. This old man estimates that there will be a drought this year. As the saying goes, after a drought, there will be locusts. Your master's prophecy is not without reason. Your strength is limited. If you want to save all the common people of the Tang Empire, you have to rely on the power of the imperial court. But Li Zishuan wanted to continue dissuading him, but Qin Xiong waved his hand and stopped him. Little Xian, you don't have to persuade me anymore. This old man has been on the battlefield all my life. It's not easy to see the world at peace and the common people living and working in peace. I will not watch them starve to death because of the locust plague. My hands are already stained with the blood of countless people. I should have been taken away by the heavens long ago and fallen into the cycle of reincarnation. Now, I can still use this broken body to do something for the common people. Even if I am condemned by His Majesty or condemned by everyone, this old man will have no regrets. Li Zishuan was moved by the old man's sad words. He felt that he was so small compared to Qin Qiong. At this moment, he felt that a man should take responsibility like Qin Qiong, so he said, "Uncle Qin, this happened because of me. How can I let you take responsibility? Uncle Qin, please report to His Majesty. If His Majesty wants to punish you, I will take responsibility with you." Qin Qiong said in surprise, "How can I do that? Little Xian, you are still young and have a long way to go. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions." Li Zishuan said firmly, "I am not letting my emotions affect my decisions. This is a decision I made after careful consideration. If Uncle Qin does not agree, I will write to His Majesty alone." Qin Shubao saw that Li Zishuan had made up his mind, so he could only nod and say, "All right, I will also write your name in the secret memorial. The two of us will write together. It's getting late now. Call Jijie and let's go back to the city." Li Zishuan returned to the small courtyard and found Han Yushi waiting for him in the courtyard. He smiled at her, indicating that he was fine. Cheng Yaojin sat in the courtyard with his eyes slightly closed. He probably hadn't completely recovered yet. He didn't see Han Lijing. He was probably still drunk. Li Zishuan went over to say a few words to Han Yushi and reminded her again to be careful when she entered the city tomorrow. Then, he pulled Cheng Yaojin, who was slightly sober, and called Hu Jing and his brother over. Anyway, they were just two children and weren't heavy. Each of them could sit on one more. Just like that, the five of them rode 3 horses and left the Han family village. Under the setting sun, they rushed towards Chang'an City. Chapter 132. In the evening, the 5 of them finally returned to Chang'an. After parting with Cheng Yaojin and Qin Qiong at Yanxing Gate, Li Zishuan dismounted from his horse and walked home with Hu Jing and his brother. He had the servants settle the siblings in 2 rooms on the west side of Mingyue Pavilion. At this time, Wang Zhong came to find him. "Young master, this is the account book that shopkeeper Lu sent over today. He said he wants you to take a look." Wang Zhong handed over a small booklet and said respectfully. Li Zishuan nodded and took the booklet curiously. He was shocked when he opened it. It turned out that it was the profits of the Drunken Immortal restaurant for the past few days. The day before the launch of the Drunken Immortal restaurant, the Drunken Immortal restaurant earned a total of 352 strings of cash. On the day of the launch of the Drunken Immortal restaurant, the Drunken Immortal restaurant earned a total of 672 strings of cash. On the second day, they earned 956 strings of cash. On the third day, they earned 1,167 strings of cash. Today, they earned 1,450 strings of cash. Li Zishuan was shocked. The profits were too terrifying. They earned more than 1,000 strings of cash in a day. The Drunken Immortal restaurant had become a money tree. It seemed that he only needed to lie at home and count money in the future. Li Zishuan thought happily. "Ha! Not bad, not bad. Uncle Wang, tell shopkeeper Lu to do well." Li Zishuan chuckled as he handed the account book back to Wang Zhong. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Uncle Wang, bring Hu Jing and his brother to the Imperial Physician Bureau tomorrow and hand them over to Dr. Sunday. I'll go take care of some matters first and then go take a look." Wang Zhong smiled and nodded. "Yes, young master." Yunxi Pavilion. "Young master," Xiao Ying trembled as he bowed to the young master by the window. Just as he was about to say something, he saw a ball of paper flying towards him. He didn't dare to dodge and could only let the paper ball hit his head. "Trash, I left the Yunxi Pavilion to you to manage. Look at what it's become now. I helped you find the Imperial chef, but you still can't beat the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Now our restaurant has fewer and fewer customers, and the drunken immortal restaurant has more and more people. What use do I have for you? The young master turned around and scolded Xiao Ying while pointing at his nose with a sinister expression. After scolding him, he still wasn't satisfied. He picked up the teacup on the table and threw it at Xiao Ying's feet. Xiao Ying's voice trembled in fear as he said, This subordinate has failed in his task. Please calm down, young master. Calm down? What can you use to appease this young master's anger? Do you know how much the drunken immortal restaurant earns in a day? Nearly 1,500 strings of coins. That's equivalent to 4 days of profit for our Yunshi restaurant. This young master has always had high hopes for you, and this is how you repay me? What a waste. The more the young master spoke, the angrier he got. In the end, he couldn't help but kick Xiao Ying twice. Xiao Ying gritted his teeth and endured it. He did not make a sound. He immediately got up from the ground and cupped his hands. Young master, I've investigated. The reason the Immortal Indulgence Inn has been so popular recently is mainly because they've launched 2 new wines, the Immortal Drunken Wine and the Paradise of Warmth. These 2 wines have unique concocting methods and extremely unique tastes, so they've attracted batch after batch of returning customers. The young master calmed down a bit and ordered, then send someone to their winery and steal the secret recipe for their new wine. We also want to imitate this new wine. Xiao Ying awkwardly said, Young master, I'm afraid this won't work. Li Zishuan placed his new wine in Duke Lu's winery to brew it. There are many guards from the Qing residence around the winery. Those people used to be soldiers and their skills are not bad. If we force our way in, I'm afraid we'll get into big trouble. After all, in Jingguan Great Tang, the title of Demon King Qing Yaojin was very intimidating. No one was willing to provoke this old demon. Then who else knows the secret recipe? The young master helplessly asked. Replying to young master, the craftsmen of the winery naturally know the recipe, but they have signed a contract with the Qing family. I'm afraid they won't easily reveal it. But according to what this subordinate knows, there should be another person who knows the recipe. Who? Speak quickly. Xiao Ying cautiously said, replying to young master, that person is Han Tianhu's daughter. According to this subordinate's investigation, Han Tianhu's daughter is very likely to have participated in the brewing of the new wine. Moreover, she's one of the earliest participants. Oh! The young master raised his brows in surprise. Then, he paced back and forth in the room with his hands clasped behind his back. Xiao Ying hesitated for a moment before he clenched his teeth and cupped his fist. Young master, this subordinate has another matter. I don't know. The young master unhappily waved his hand and said, Speak. Yes, young master. The subordinate reported that Miss Ling Yuyao has also arrived in Chang'an. Yesterday, she and eldest young master went to Li Zishuan's residence and stayed there for a total of 2 hours. As for what they discussed, this subordinate doesn't know. The young master halted his steps upon hearing this. His expression changed before he finally scolded with a cold expression. It's this little bitch again. Send someone to investigate what my big brother discussed with Li Zishuan yesterday. This young master feels that this matter isn't simple. Xiao Ying cupped his fists and replied, Yes. This subordinate will arrange it now. Wait. The young master muttered, There's no need to investigate. According to my big brother's usual style, I reckon that he most likely went to find Li Zishuan to cooperate. It's too late to investigate now. The Immortal Drunken Wine's profits are huge. No matter what agreement they reached, it's extremely disadvantageous to us. We must find a way to turn the situation around as soon as possible. Otherwise, this young master will definitely lose this clan's trial. Xiao Ying softly said, I'll follow young master's instructions. The young master thought for a moment before saying to Xiao Ying, Come closer. Xiao Ying hurriedly did as he was told. The young master whispered a few words in his ear before returning to his normal voice. Do you understand? Xiao Ying replied, "This subordinate understands. Young master, please rest assured that nothing will go wrong." The young master coldly said, "If there are any more mishaps, you don't need to live anymore." Xiao Ying's body trembled as he cupped his fists and said, "Yes." The young master continued, "This immortal drunken wine's profits are so huge. We're definitely not the only ones keeping an eye on it. You have to move quickly and pay attention to propriety. Don't kill anyone. If this matter gets out of hand, this young master won't be able to explain. Do you understand?" Xiao Ying nodded and said, "This subordinate understands." The young master nodded with satisfaction and instructed, "To ensure that nothing goes wrong, you'll go this time as well. But if this matter is exposed, you must not reveal your identity. This time, all of you should avoid Han Tianhu as much as possible. Don't cause any trouble." This subordinate understands. The young master waved his hand and said, "Go. The faster, the better." Xiao Ying slowly retreated. In the room, after a long time, the young master's muttering voice could be heard. "Since young, you've always been better than me in everything. Everyone looked down on me. This time, I definitely won't lose to you again." However, no one noticed that a black-clothed man on the roof lightly flew away. Chapter 133. Azure Dragon District, Wang Renbiao's residence. "Young lord, that's all Yu Yao heard. As for what second young lord said to Xiao Ying, Yu Yao doesn't know." Ling Yu Yao softly reported to Wang Renbiao in an exquisitely decorated room. Wang Renbiao stood up, closed his fan, and gently tapped his left hand. He slowly walked to a row of bookshelves, pondered for a moment, and sighed. "Alas, Yao even if you didn't hear those words, this young lord can guess most of it. It seems that this younger brother of mine is going to do something foolish." Ling Yuyao was curious, but she didn't ask. This was also her nature. In her mind, if the young lord was willing to tell her, he would tell her even if she didn't ask. Wang Renbiao hesitated for a moment, then finally made up his mind. No, Li Zixuan is no longer the same as before. If second brother is allowed to do as he pleases, it will definitely bring disaster to the Wang family. Besides, I just started working with Li Zixuan, how can I let him ruin it? Yao leave immediately and secretly follow Xiao Ying. If he does anything unusual, immediately send a message to me. Ling Yuyao nodded. "Yes, young lord." With that, she picked up her sword and was about to leave. "Wait!" Wang Renbiao called out to stop her. Ling Yuyao turned back and asked, "Young lord, do you have any other orders?" Wang Renbiao took a deep look at Ling Yuyao's beautiful eyes and said in a deep voice, "Be careful in everything you do. Don't try to be brave. If you're discovered, remember to withdraw in time. Nothing is more important than your life." A trace of gentleness flashed across Ling Yuyao's frosty face. She said softly, "Don't worry, young master. Yuyao's divine breathing technique is a secret technique of my sect. Even a grandmaster-level expert would find it hard to detect it." Wang Renbiao nodded. Ling Yuyao pushed open the door and left the courtyard, disappearing without a trace in a flash. The next day, in Taiji Palace, the morning court had reached its end. "Your Majesty, the 30,000 curved plows manufactured by the Ministry of Works have all been distributed to the county offices near Chang'an. They will be rented or sold to the farmers." Yen Lide bowed. Li Er nodded in satisfaction. "That's great. Minister Yen, you've worked hard. Although it's a little late for spring plowing now, we can still recover some of the losses for the people. Your Majesty is wise." After saying that, Yen Lide returned to his original position. "Is there anything else you would like to report?" Li Er secretly rubbed his old waist and asked the officials. In his heart, he thought that he seemed to have overworked himself last night. He should get the imperial chef to make some tiger penis soup to replenish his energy. The ministers looked at each other and then lowered their heads. Seeing this, Li Er announced the end of the court session. Not long after, the officials dispersed. Only Qin Xiong walked out and quietly turned back. After Li Er left the court, he went to the back hall of Taiji Palace. Just as he was about to change his clothes and go to the west inner garden to rest, a servant came in and reporting to your majesty, Duke Yi requests an audience. Li Er stopped what he was doing and said in surprise, "Oh? What business does Shu Bao have? Hurry up and announce it." "Yes." The attendant cupped his hands in acknowledgement and slowly retreated. A moment later, Qin Xiong walked in shakily and bowed to Li Er. "Greetings, your majesty," Li Er hurriedly said. "Shu Bao, quickly dispense with the formalities. Men, give me a seat." The attendant brought over a stool. Qin Xiong cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, your majesty." Li Er waved his hand and asked, "Shu Bao, why do you want to see me? Why didn't you say it in the court session just now?" Qin Xiong looked at the surrounding palace maids and servants. After hesitating for a moment, he cupped his hands and said, "This is an important matter. If I may be so bold, your majesty, please dismiss your servants." Li Er was even more curious. He waved at the palace maids and servants and said, "You may leave first." "Yes." After they all left the inner hall, Li Er looked at Qin Xiong and smiled. "Shu Bao, this is the first time you are discussing matters with me so seriously. Now that everyone has left, Shu Bao can speak, right?" Qin Xiong took out a memorial from his sleeve and stood up to present it to Li Er with both hands. He said, "Your Majesty, please take a look." Li Er smiled and took the memorial. He casually opened it and took a look. A moment later, Li Er's expression suddenly changed. The relaxed expression on his face was no longer there. Qin Xiong stood quietly at the side with his hands behind his back, silent. About 15 minutes later, Li Er put down the memorial. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He stood up and stared at Qin Xiong. "Shu Bao, do you believe the prophecy of spiritual master Ling Su?" "Replying to your majesty, this old subject believes that it is better to believe that such a thing is true than not. Furthermore, spiritual master Ling Su is an immortal with great achievement. I think that this prophecy is credible." Li Er said angrily, "Nonsense! Do you want me to order the people of the world to deal with the locust plague in advance because of a prophecy? Do you know that this matter will cause chaos in the world if it gets out? This nonsense must have come from that brat Li Zishuan's mouth, right? That brat is restless every day. I think that he has had enough of his leisurely days." Qin Xiong hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, this matter was brought up by me. Li Zishuan did not intend to speak of this prophecy. He was forced by me to speak of the truth. My personal honor is irrelevant. I only hope that the people of the world will suffer less. I am willing to bear the consequences of this matter." Qin Xiong bowed deeply to Li Er. Although he and Li Zishuan had agreed yesterday that they would jointly sign the memorial and share the responsibility when something happened, Qin Xiong had thought about it and decided not to write Li Zishuan's name when he was writing the memorial last night. In his opinion, Li Zishuan was still young and had a long road ahead of him. As for himself, he was already a crippled person. He would just take it as sharing the burden for the younger generation. Only then did Li Er's expression change. He hurriedly helped Qin Xiong up and said, "Shu Bao, why do you have to do this? You are dedicated to the country and the people. How can I not distinguish right from wrong? But Shu Bao, are you so sure that this prophecy will come true?" Until now, Li Er was still unwilling to believe that there would be a locust plague. Because once the locust plague happened, there would definitely be people spreading rumors that the ruler was heartless and that this was a punishment from the heavens. Qin Xiong said, "Your Majesty, have you noticed that this year's weather is really abnormal? It is just May and it is already so hot. In the history books there have been several locust plagues. The first year was a drought. So when I heard this prophecy, I felt that something would happen next year." Li Er touched his chin and said in disbelief, "But there have been countless years of drought. I have never seen so many locust plagues in history." Seeing that he could not persuade Li Er, Qin Xiong hesitated for a moment and gritted his teeth. Your Majesty, according to Li Zixuan, spiritual master Ling Su had another prophecy a few years ago. Li Er instinctively asked, What prophecy? Your Majesty, that prophecy came true on the 4th of June last year at the Xuanwu Gate. Silence. The entire hall suddenly fell into a strange silence. Only Li Er's heavy breathing could be heard. Qin Xiong frowned and held his breath. His expression was serious as he stood to the side with his head lowered and did not speak. Li Er's eyes were red as he stared fixedly at Qin Xiong. The Xuanwu Gate change. There was someone who dared to mention the Xuanwu Gate change in front of him. If it was someone else in front of him, Li Er would definitely not hesitate to have someone drag him out and behead him. But the person in front of him was Qin Xiong, the second brother Qin who had saved him from danger many times in the past. Qin Xiong was the only general among Li Er's trusted aides who did not participate in the Xuanwu Gate change. Later, the court officials all thought that Li Er would completely ignore Qin Xiong because of this. But they did not know that Qin Xiong's position in Li Er's heart had never been shaken. After a long time, Li Er flicked his sleeves and turned around. He shouted coldly, Come, summon Li Zixuan into the palace. Yes. Chapter 134. Li Residence. After Li Zixuan finished his breakfast, he called for Hu Jing and her brother. After the two children came yesterday, they had been very careful and well-behaved, afraid of causing trouble for Li Zixuan. Mrs. Li had heard about the two children's experience from her son and was very sympathetic to them. She personally went to Mingwuxian to give them many exquisite pastries. Li Zixuan looked at Hu Jing and said, You and Guoji follow Butler Wang to the Imperial Physician Department to find Taoist Sunday. I'll go out to do something and then come see you. Don't worry, Taoist Sun's medical skills are superb. He will definitely be able to cure you too. Hu Jing smiled sweetly. Thank you, young master. Don't worry, young master, my brother and I will be fine. Hu Guoji scratched her head and laughed. Hee hee, young master, don't worry, Guoji will take good care of sister. Li Zixuan patted Hu Guoji's head with a smile. When this chubby child giggled, Li Zixuan couldn't help but think of Da Bai from the movie Superland Troopers, in his previous life. This kind of giggle was always able to bring an inexplicable warmth to one's heart. Uncle Wang, please take good care of them. Wang Zhong clasped his hands and said, Young master, don't worry. Li Zixuan nodded and Wang Zhong left with the two siblings. Hu Jing turned around and waved goodbye to Li Zixuan with a smile. Li Zixuan smiled with relief and turned back to the west courtyard. He changed his clothes and prepared to go out. He planned to go to the workshop today to see how the carriage was doing. This carriage took him a lot of effort. Just as he walked to the door, he saw Qing Chumo and Li Chengqian walking together. The two of them met at the entrance of the workshop by chance. Li Chengqian came today mainly to thank Li Zixuan for giving him the new wine. This helped him a lot in front of Li Er. Of course, he was also helping to pass on his father's decree a few days ago. Although this decree was a bit of a scam, he couldn't not come. The reason why Qing Chumo came to look for Li Zixuan was very simple. This guy had nothing better to do, so he came out to play. These days, the Drunken Immortal and the Land of Warmth and Tenderness were extremely popular, which made him and his father extremely happy. Today, he came over to drag Li Zixuan to a restaurant to celebrate. Who knew that he would meet Li Chengqian so coincidentally? Because of his relationship with Li Zixuan, Qing Chumo wasn't as estranged as before. They even chatted with each other on the way. Of course, the center of their conversation was always about Li Zixuan. When Li Zixuan saw the two of them, he hurriedly greeted them. Your Highness Chonyo, you're here. Please come in. Inside the room, Li Zixuan expressed his gratitude. Li Zixuan smiled and said, Your Highness, there's no need to be so courteous. It's just a few jars of fine wine. It's not worth mentioning. However, Li Zixuan's next sentence made Li Zixuan unable to smile anymore. Oh right, my father also said that in the future, the palace's wine will be purchased from your winery. It's just that the price will be 50% off according to the market price. Li Chengqian hesitated for a moment, but still said it. After saying it, he felt a bit embarrassed and felt that he couldn't stay any longer. When Li Zixuan heard it, his old face immediately darkened. This Li heir was really an old hoodlum. 50% off the market price? Why didn't he just rob a bank? Qing Chumo also almost jumped. His family had 10% shares in the winery. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became very awkward. In the end, Li Chengqian said embarrassedly, how about I ask my father to take back the order? Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and waved his hand, saying, Your Highness, there's no need for that. Our winery will provide new wine to the palace as scheduled. This matter didn't only have disadvantages. It also had advantages. After the land of tenderness and immortal drunken wine became the imperial wine, it was equivalent to having an invincible protective umbrella. If others wanted to touch it, they would have to think twice. Qing Chumo glared and wanted to refute, but Li Zixuan gave him a look to calm him down. Qing Chumo then sat down reluctantly, thinking that His Majesty was really black-hearted. Li Chengqian said happily, Thank you Zixuan for understanding. Li Chengqian's goal was achieved. He chatted with Li Zixuan for a while, and was about to leave. Li Zixuan and Qing Chumo sent him to the door. At this moment, a group of people suddenly came from afar. They were carrying a badly mutilated, injured person and rushed over. Young master, something bad happened. Li Zixuan looked carefully and saw that these people were the villagers of the Han village. He couldn't help but be shocked and quickly went to greet them. Uncle Nyo, what happened? Young master, something bad happened. Old Hu was almost beaten to death. We wanted to go to the East Market today, and found Old Hu on the way. He was already unconscious. Old Nyo said while wiping his sweat and panting. Li Zixuan then noticed Old Hu was being carried by a few people behind him. He saw that Old Hu was covered in blood, as if he had walked out of a blood pool. Li Zixuan was shocked. He quickly squatted down and patted Old Hu's face and shouted, Uncle Hu, wake up, wake up. After shouting for a long time, Li Zixuan tried to pinch Old Hu's philtrum. Old Hu groaned and opened his eyes with a painful expression. When he saw Li Zixuan in front of him, he immediately shouted excitedly, Young master, quickly go and save the Han family's girl. She was taken away. Boom. Like a bolt from the blue, Li Zixuan was immediately shocked by this news and was stunned on the spot. Little Xian, what's wrong? Qing Chumo walked over and saw Li Zixuan as if he had lost his soul. He quickly shook his arm and asked with concern. Li Chengqian also looked at him with a worried face. Li Zixuan immediately reacted. Now was not the time for him to be sad. He looked at Old Hu and asked anxiously, Uncle Hu, quickly tell me where Yushi was taken, who took her, and where did they take her? Old Hu held his breath, afraid that he would faint at this critical moment. He quickly bit the tip of his tongue, and blood immediately flowed out of the corner of his mouth. He said weakly, Young master, it's four black-clothed masked men and a group of bandits. Me and Han girl at Rhinoceros Slope were blocked by them. Old Hu couldn't beat them. Han girl was taken away by them. They went to the Qinling Mountains. Young master, quickly go save. Before Old Hu could finish speaking, he fainted again. Ridiculous, little Xian, don't worry. I'll go back now and ask my father to send someone to help you find her. Han Yushi is now Uncle Qin's adopted daughter. I believe Uncle Qin will also send someone to help you. Qing Chumo understood the whole story and immediately shouted. Li Chengqian also said, These bandits are too arrogant. Zixuan, don't be impulsive. I'll go back to the palace and report to my father. I'll send the Yulin guards to help you find her. Li Zixuan's heart was in a mess. The woman he loved the most had been taken away. He only wanted to kill someone at this moment. He wanted to save her. Even if the other party had thousands of experts, he was not afraid. He still wanted to go. He couldn't even protect his own woman. What kind of man was he, Li Zixuan? Your Highness, I'll have to trouble you to send Uncle Hu to the Imperial Medical Department. I'll go save you, she. His voice was bone-chilling, without a trace of emotion. After he finished speaking, he went into the house to take the wind-chasing sword. Ignoring the dissuasion of his two good brothers behind him, he mounted his horse and was about to leave. Then he heard a sharp voice from the side. Lord Li, His Majesty summons you to the palace for an audience. Quickly follow me into the palace. Li Zixuan fiercely slapped the horse's belly. He ignored the attendant who delivered the decree and rushed out like a gust of wind, leaving only an angry roar. I don't have time. The attendant was so scared that he fell to the ground, not knowing how to return to the palace and report the decree. Li Chengqian hurriedly had people carry old Hu to the Imperial Medical Department and called for the captain of his personal guards, Wu San. Quickly mobilize all the Imperial guards in the Eastern Palace to assist Li Zixuan in investigating Miss Han's whereabouts. Yes. Wu San bowed in agreement. Then he quickly called for 2 personal guards and ordered them to protect the Crown Prince. He mounted his horse and returned to the Eastern Palace to mobilize the troops. Sigh. Li Chengqian shook his head and sighed. This was the first time he had seen Li Zixuan lose his self-control. He was afraid that this Miss Han was really important to him. He hoped that both of them would be safe and sound. Qing Chumo anxiously stamped his feet and said goodbye to Li Chengqian. He went home to find his father for help. Chapter 135. Taiji Palace. Your Majesty. The messenger who went to deliver the decree to Li Zixuan bowed to Li Er, trembling in fear as he did not know how to report to Li Er. Where's Li Zixuan? Li Er frowned and asked unhappily. Your Majesty, Lord Li. Lord Li said he's not free. The messenger felt Li Er's blade-like gaze and hurriedly told the truth. Of course, he omitted the first 2 words of Li Zixuan's sentence. Although Qin Xiong, who was standing at the side, remained calm on the surface, his heart was in turmoil. He thought to himself that this Li Zixuan was really bold. Li Er slammed the table and said angrily, Impudent, this brat is simply lawless. Men. Qin Xiong knew that something was wrong and was about to plead for mercy when another servant hurriedly came in and bowed. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince requests an audience. Li Er suppressed the anger in his heart and said, Let him in. Yes. A moment later. Greetings, Father. Li Er acknowledged and asked, Qingqian, what's the matter? Father, I'm here today for Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan had just left. As a friend, he naturally had to help him clean up his mess. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. You still dare to mention that brat to me. I summoned him, but he didn't even dare to come. He's getting bolder and bolder, Li Er said angrily. Li Chengqian hurriedly said, Father, please calm down. Li Zixuan has a reason for this. Father, please listen to me slowly. Li Chengqian told him everything that had just happened. When Qin Xiong heard that something had happened to Han Yushi, he immediately rushed forward and said, Your Majesty, this Han Yushi is the adopted daughter that I just adopted. I didn't expect that she would be captured by criminals today. I beg Your Majesty to allow me to bring people to rescue her. Li Er said in surprise, Shu Bao actually adopted a daughter? Qin Xiong nodded anxiously and said, Your Majesty, I just acknowledged it yesterday. Li Er saw the anxious expression on Qin Xiong's face and knew that now was not the time to ask for details. He said, Shu Bao, you are injured and cannot go. Men, summon Dugu Xian. Greetings, Your Majesty. Dugu Xian, clad in radiant armor, cupped his fists at Li Er. Li Er ordered, Dugu Xian, take 1,000 featherwood guards and immediately search for Han Yushi's whereabouts in the vicinity of Mount Qinling. If you encounter bandits who resist stubbornly, you can kill them without mercy." Duguxian said awkwardly, "Your Majesty, I don't know Han Yushi." Li Er thought for a moment and said, "Go to the Imperial Physician's office and bring an uninjured Han villager with you. Have him search with you." "Yes." Duguxian cupped his fists and left. "Wait." Li Er glanced at Qin Qiong and added to Duguxian, "You must ensure the safety of Han Yushi and Li Zixuan." Although he was angry at Li Zixuan, he did not want Li Zixuan to die. He also admired Li Zixuan's talent. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Your Majesty, I wish to return home and send my men to search. Your Majesty, please allow me," Qin Qiong said with a sorrowful expression. At this time, there was no time to continue discussing the locust plague. Thus Li Er nodded and said, "Shu Bao, take care of yourself. Go." Soon, only Li Er was left in the hall. After thinking for a long time, he shouted, "Summon Li Junxian." Then, a valiant young man in martial attire entered the hall. He bowed and said, "This general, Li Junxian, greets Your Majesty." Li Er nodded and told Li Junxian about Han Yushi's capture. Then, he ordered, "Junxian, take 500 cavalry and investigate the background of these bandits. How dare they cause trouble near the capital?" This general obeys the decree. At the same time, in the Qing residence, "What? You said that Han Yushi was captured?" Qing Yaojin's eyes widened as he exclaimed. "Yes, father, quickly send someone to search for her. Your son is about to go crazy from seeing little Xian." Qing Chumo said anxiously. Qing Yaojin said, "Of course we have to search for her. She is the adopted daughter of second brother Qin. In the end, she is half my adopted daughter. How can I just stand by and watch?" After saying that, Qing Yaojin rushed outside the house and shouted, "Zhuang Qi." A few seconds later, a man came in and bowed. "Master." Qing Yaojin said, "Zhuang Qi, immediately take all the guards in the residence and search for Li Zixuan in the Qinling Mountains. If he needs your help, do as he says." "Yes, master." Zhuang Qi cupped his hands and accepted the order. He was about to go out to search for him. "Wait, father, I'll go with them," Qing Chumo said anxiously. He remembered how cold-blooded and violent Li Zixuan was, like a demon from hell. He was worried about his good brother. If he did not go personally, he would not feel at ease. Qing Yaojin nodded. "All right, Chonyo, you go first. I'll look for Shu Bao and come later." Qing Chumo and Zhuang Qi immediately mobilized their men and headed for the Qinling Mountains. Qin Manor. "Master, why are you leaving court so late today?" Madame Qin asked when she saw that the other officials in the square had already returned home. Qin Qiong was full of impatience. He did not have the time to chat. He hurriedly said, "Madam, we don't have time to talk about this now. Han Yushi has been captured. Little Xian went to search for her alone. Both of them are in danger. I have to rescue them as soon as possible." Madame Qin was shocked at first, then she was endlessly anxious. Yesterday, Qin Qiong told her that Han Yushi had agreed to acknowledge him as her godfather. Madame Qin was overjoyed from the bottom of her heart. She and Qin Qiong only had one son, Qin Huayu. Although before giving birth, she hoped that she would give birth to a son. After giving birth, she would greedily think about how good it would be if she had a daughter. Han Yushi was obedient and strong. She was also the daughter of their benefactor. Madame Qin was very satisfied to be able to take in such a daughter. Therefore, she asked the servants in the manor to clean the entire manor early in the morning, inside and out. She was waiting for Han Yushi to visit her. In the end, she received such bad news. "Master, you must not let anything happen to our daughter." Madame Qin sounded like she was about to cry. Qin Qiong waved his hand in annoyance, and asked someone to take out his pair of golden maces. He walked into the courtyard and shouted, Ding Quan, quickly gather all the guards in the manor and follow me to save them. Qin Xiong could not care less about his injuries at this moment. Whether it was Li Zixuan or Han Yushi, he did not want anything to happen to either of them. Yes, master. A loud answer came from a corner of the courtyard. Second brother, is your body all right? Why don't I take them to find it? Qing Chumo rode his horse over. He knew that Qin Xiong would not be able to sit still. He might even go personally. He was worried that Qin Xiong's body would not be able to hold on, so he let Qing Chumo leave first. He would come over himself to take care of him. Jijia, I'm much better now. It's fine. Time is of the essence. Let's set off quickly. Qin Xiong waved his hand and said anxiously. Qing Chumo was naturally not a wishy-washy person. He saw that Qin Xiong's complexion was indeed much better than a few days ago, so he laughed loudly and said, Good, I can finally fight side by side with second brother Qin again. I want to see which group of bandits dare to bully us. Go. Qin Xiong was also full of heroic spirit. He flipped onto his horse and held his golden maces. He shouted, Follow me! The dozens of guards behind him mounted their horses one after another and loudly answered, Yes! They were all old soldiers who had followed Qin Xiong into battle. At this moment, they felt as if they were on the battlefield again. A bloodthirsty killing intent gradually spread out in the field. Go! More than 70 riders whizzed past like a whirlwind, heading straight for Yenxing Gate in the east of Chang'an City. Chapter 136. The general guarding the gate of Chang'an's Yenxing Gate had truly broadened his horizons today. First, he saw a youth, dressed in white and mounted on a white horse, charge toward the gate like an arrow. Although one could ride a horse in Chang'an, such a fast horse was not permitted unless there was an urgent report from the front line. Just as the general of the city gate was about to extend his lance to stop him, he met the young man's cold eyes. Immediately, a chill rose from the bottom of his feet. In that moment of hesitation, the young man had already rushed out of the gate and disappeared without a trace. The general immediately felt that he had lost some face. After cursing at the youth, he returned to the gate to drink tea. A little while later, he saw another group of soldiers, several hundred in number, charging toward him. Upon questioning them, he realized that they were Eastern Palace Guard. Frightened, he hastily let them pass. 15 minutes later, a large group of soldiers, led by a young general, charged toward Yenxing Gate. The general took a closer look and estimated that there were around 1,000 soldiers. He couldn't help but be shocked, wondering if there was another battle going on. Why would the imperial court send so many soldiers? Only when the group entered did the general realize that the leader was a Featherwood Guard commander. After examining the token, he immediately let them pass. Once the 1,000-some soldiers had all left the city, he couldn't help but wipe away the sweat on his forehead. Just what day was it today? This lineup was truly frightening. But the following scenes left him completely numb. First, Li Junxian came with 100 of the Great Tang's most mysterious horsemen. Then, the Demon King's eldest son came with 70 to 80 powerful guards. Finally, he saw the ailing Duke of Yi ride a horse to Yenxing Gate with the Demon King of Lu Guogong. The guard at the city gate pinched his thigh hard to make sure that he was not dreaming. He could not figure out what had happened that had alarmed so many big shots in Chang'an. Qing Chumo had told Li Zixuan that Chang'an only had a few things happening throughout the year. If there was even the slightest rustle of grass in the wind, those who paid attention would definitely know. Today's Chang'an wasn't as simple as a rustle of grass in the wind. Those with a little status would immediately find out what was going on. Bujing Feng, Yuqi Jingda's home. Jindao, I heard that Shu Bao and Jijia went out of the city together. It seems they are going to search for Li Zixuan and a girl. Yuqi Jingda stroked his large beard and said solemnly. Niu Jindao nodded and said, I've also heard about it. Jingda, Shu Bao's body has yet to fully recover. How can we just watch with folded arms? Why don't we bring our family generals and lend him a helping hand? Yuchi Jingda laughed heartily and said, "That's exactly what I was thinking. Speaking of which, us brothers haven't fought side by side for a long time. Moreover, Li Zishuan is also a pretty good young man. Who knows how many people have been saved by the curved plow he invented." Azure Dragon District. Young Master, the army in Chang'an has been deployed everywhere. His Majesty has even sent out hundreds of riders. Li Zishuan was the first to leave the city, followed by the Eastern Palace Imperial Guards of the Crown Prince. Then, Cheng Yaojin, Qin Qiong, Yuchi Jingda, Niu Jinda, and other military generals have also led their families out of the city. In the courtyard, Lu Yun reported the unusual movements in Chang'an City to Wang Renbiao. Hearing this, Wang Renbiao's face turned ashen. He frowned in disbelief and shouted, "How did this matter become so big? Han Yushi is just a peasant girl. It's fine if Li Zishuan is crazy about her, but why are these military generals also?" Lu Yun carefully said, "Young Master, it said that Han Yushi is the adopted daughter of Duke Yi yesterday." Wang Renbiao's face suddenly froze. After a long while, he said in a deep voice, "We can't let second brother continue to mess around like this. He's going to harm our entire Wang family. Where is Yao Er now?" "Young Master, Miss Yu Yao is following Xiao Ying and the others. They are going to the Bloodwind stronghold." Wang Renbiao's face changed and muttered, "Second brother is actually mixing with such desperados. This is simply ruining the family's reputation. Quickly send a message to Yao Er and ask her to do her best to assist Li Zishuan and save Han Yushi." "Yes, young master," Lu Yun responded and hurriedly left. On the mountain road outside the eastern city of Chang'an, Li Zishuan was burning with anxiety as he galloped wildly on his horse. Although the big white horse under him was a famous horse in the western region, it couldn't withstand such a wild gallop. However, Li Zishuan couldn't care less about the horse now. He just wanted to find Han Yushi quickly. If he had known that something like this would happen today, he would have taken Han Yushi back to Chang'an yesterday even if he had to forcefully snatch her. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Thinking of Han Yushi's gentle personality and peerless appearance, Li Zishuan only hated himself for not taking the initiative to pursue Han Yushi earlier. Then, she would have stayed in the Li residence and this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. In less than a quarter of an hour, Li Zishuan had already arrived at the Rhinoceros Slope, which was 10 miles away from Chang'an City. He saw 4 or 5 pools of blood on the ground and many traces of a fight. It was enough to show that the battle was fierce. Previously, he had heard from Han Lijing, that old who had also been a government soldier a few years ago. Judging from the traces of the battle, old who's kung fu was probably not weak. It was just that 2 fists couldn't fight against 4 hands. Before old who fainted, he said that the group of thieves took Han Yushi and fled in the direction of the Qinling Mountains. Li Zishuan raised his head and looked at the vast Qinling Mountains in the north. He couldn't help but feel despair in his heart. Where could he start looking for such a large mountain range? The more delay, the more danger Han Yushi would be in. Li Zishuan had never been so desperate and anxious as he was at this moment. He was unwilling to give up and shouted to the north, "Yushi, where are you?" The roar lasted for more than a mile before it gradually subsided. The pedestrians on the road heard the roar and stopped to look in this direction. Li Zishuan vented the depression in his chest, adjusted his mood, and mounted the horse. No matter how big the Qinling Mountains were, even if he had to search for a lifetime, he would find Han Yushi. At this moment, a ball of object flew towards Li Zishuan's face. Although the speed was fast, Li Zishuan didn't feel any killing intent. He tilted his head and used his strength to grab the ball of object in his palm. "Who is it?" Li Zishuan looked around and saw that there was nothing around except trees and weeds. He paused and looked at the object in his hand suspiciously. He saw that it was a silk cloth wrapped around a stone. Li Zixuan threw away the stone and opened the silk cloth. He saw the words on it: "If you want to save Han Yushi, go to the Bloody Wind stockade of Mount Mang quickly." Li Zixuan was suddenly shocked and hesitated. He didn't know if the person who delivered the letter was purposely making a diversion to distract him or was sincerely helping him. After hesitating for a moment, Li Zixuan gritted his teeth. He had to risk it. Having a specific location was much better than him running around like a headless fly. He threw away the silk cloth and walked to an open area. He found a passerby and asked for the location of Mount Mang. He rode his horse and galloped over. Chapter 137. Giddy Up. On the mountain path to the southeast of the Qinling Mountains, Li Zixuan whipped his horse and galloped wildly. The white horse beneath him seemed to have sensed his master's anxiety. Its 4 legs were crisscrossing at an extremely high frequency, kicking up a trail of dust. Li Zixuan's mind kept thinking about Han Yushi's smile and the words on the silk cloth. Blood Wind Stockade, Blood Wind Stockade. He could not help but murmur. At this time, he felt that Blood Wind Stockade sounded very familiar. Suddenly, he quivered. Wasn't the previous owner of this body accidentally knocked off the cliff to save a woman from the bandits of Blood Wind Stockade? According to his memory, these bandits were extremely vicious. They even dared to kill people. If Han Yushi fell into their hands, wouldn't she be in great danger? Thinking of this, Li Zixuan became more anxious. The horse was urged faster and faster by him. Suddenly, the white horse under him neighed tragically and fell forward. Li Zixuan quickly flew down from the horse. After stabilizing himself, he saw that the white horse was panting heavily and its front legs were retracted. It seemed to be injured. Li Zixuan quickly went forward to check carefully. He found that the horse's front hooves were nailed with thorny vines. Li Zixuan touched the white horse's ears and said softly, "You've worked hard today. From now on, you can follow me and enjoy your life. You stay here first. When I'm done, I'll take you home." The white horse seemed to understand his words. It shook its head on the ground and gently touched Li Zixuan's palm with its nose. Li Zixuan gave a knowing smile and patted its head. Using the cloud-piercing steps, he rushed towards Mt Mang in the north. Time was of the essence, and he did not have the time to find another horse. He could only rely on his Qing Gong to hasten his journey. At the foot of the North Mang Mountain, a group of bandits in ragged clothes were escorting a flower-like girl up the mountain. "Boss, this little girl is crying and walking so slowly. Why don't you let this little one carry her?" a wretched young man flatteringly said to the leader. After he finished speaking, he couldn't help but glance at Han Yushi's stunning face. "If you dare to touch me, I will immediately bite my tongue and commit suicide." Han Yushi's eyes reddened when she heard this. She had been sad for the dead old who the whole way. After all, old who had been beaten to such a state. Han Yushi thought that old who must be dead. That family, which was already very unfortunate, had now lost its pillar of support because of her. Thinking of this, she could not help but feel a wave of grief in her heart. She cried all the way, almost forgetting the dangerous situation she was in. Along the way, she also discovered that although these people were ferocious, they didn't seem to dare to force her too much, especially the leader of the bandits. He was very wary of the black-clothed middle-aged man beside him. The bandit leader slapped the young man's head and scolded him. "Put away your tricks. Do you think I don't know what you're trying to do? If this juicy little girl could do it, would it be your turn? Get lost." After saying that, he kicked the wretched young man twice. The middle-aged masked man next to the bandit leader nodded when he saw this. He turned around and said in a suppressed voice, "Han Yushi, you'd better hurry up. Don't stall for time. You should get rid of your unrealistic thoughts as soon as possible. No one will come to save you in this wilderness. My patience is limited. You'd better not force me." Han Yushi's body trembled when she heard this. The reason why she walked so slowly was because she wanted to stall for time and wait for Li Zixuan to save her. She didn't expect that the other party would still see through her. Han Yushi was also worried that the masked middle-aged man would do something excessive next, so she could only reluctantly speed up. Next to the masked middle-aged man stood a very thin and weak masked man. Han Yushi couldn't tell whether he was a man or a woman along the way. At this moment, she heard that person say softly, "Io, Master Xiao. You see, I'm not interested in women. Why don't you let me carry this fair and tender little girl up the mountain?" After saying that, he used his orchid fingers to poke the masked middle-aged man's shoulder. He saw that Master Xiao was obviously shocked. He was probably disgusted. He quickly frowned and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and don't complicate things. If you ruin Master's plans, Master won't forgive you." That thin masked man used his orchid fingers to stroke his cheek and snorted unhappily. He twisted his butt and walked in front of the crowd with enchanting steps. The bandits either lowered their heads to count ants or pretended to block the sun with their hands to cover their eyes. If they had also transmigrated from the modern world like Li Zixuan, they would definitely say 3 words at this moment. "My eyes hurt." On the other side. Reporting. "General, there's a piece of silk cloth with words and horse hoof prints ahead." Dugu Xian took the silk cloth. On it was written, "If you want to save Han Yushi, quickly go to Mount Mang's Bloodwind stronghold." After reading it, Dugu Xian's face was dignified. He said to himself, "Bloodwind stronghold. It's actually Bloodwind stronghold." In the past few years, the imperial court has sent troops to clean up the mountain bandits, but the bandits of Xiefeng Stockade have not been eradicated. This time, I will uproot you and see if you can still harm the people. Hey, Wooden Face, did you find little Xian's whereabouts? Not far away there was a sudden shout. The person who spoke was Qing Chumo. Although the Qing family's soldiers were old soldiers who retired from the front line, after all, they had slacked off for so many years. They naturally could not compare with the elite Yulin Guard. Therefore, they arrived a little later than the Yulin Guards. As the second-generation leader of the military, Qing Chumo certainly knew Dugu Xian. However, this person often put on an indifferent expression that kept strangers away. Therefore, everyone privately called him Wooden Face. However, no one called him by his nickname like Qing Chumo. When Dugu Xian heard Qing Chumo call him Wooden Face, he immediately became angry. He threw the silk cloth into Qing Chumo's hand and said, "See for yourself. I will lead the Yulin Guards first. You send your soldiers to inform the 2 Grand Dukes behind." After saying that, he directly turned over and mounted his horse. He roared, "Yulin Guards, follow me. Let's go to Mount Mang." This army of 1,000 people, upon hearing the command, immediately gathered and set out. Their movements were neat and uniform. This was a strong army. This was the true obedience of orders and prohibitions. After Qing Chumo finished reading the contents of the silk cloth, he hurriedly said, "Zhuang Qi, you send a few people to inform my father and Uncle Qin. Then you take the rest to Mount Mang. I will go with Wooden Face to find little Xian." Zhuang Qi hurriedly said, "Yes, young master. Please be careful." Qing Chumo nodded. He mounted his horse and chased after Dugu Xian. He shouted, "Hey, Wooden Face, wait. I, old Qing, will go with you." Chapter 138. Bloodwind Stockade. The gate of the stockade was closed, and there were 2 people standing guard on the simple turrets on both sides of the gate. There were people moving in the stockade. In a dark hut on the east side. "Miss Han, I won't talk nonsense with you. Quickly hand over the formula of tenderness and immortal intoxication. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Master Xiao played with the knife in his hand, stared at Han Yushi, and threatened her. Han Yushi's hands were tied to a pillar. She was shocked when she heard that. She did not expect these people to be here for tenderness and immortal intoxication. Tenderness and immortal intoxication had an unusual position in Han Yushi's heart, because this was the first thing she did for Li Zixuan. She would not tell the formula even if she died. Hearing the middle-aged man's threatening words, Han Yushi's mind was full of thoughts. She decided to delay for a while, so she pretended to be calm and asked, "Who are you? Do you know that tenderness and immortal intoxication are new wines jointly brewed by the men of Lantian County and Lu Guogong's family? Are you not afraid of Lu Guogong's revenge?" Master Xiao was obviously stunned when he heard that. He did not know that the Qing family was also involved in the new wine. He and the second young master both thought that Li Zixuan was just borrowing a winery from the Qing family. It seemed that things were a little out of control, but he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Perhaps Han Yushi was deliberately scaring him. Panic flashed in Master Zhao's eyes. He said sternly, "Little girl, you're talking nonsense. The Qing family just lent a winery to Li Zixuan. What does this new wine have to do with them?" Han Yushi's heart moved. It seemed that these people were not fearless. She said seriously, "I don't need to lie to you. My young master told me before that he gave the Qing family 10% of the shares. So, even if you get the new wine formula from me, I'm afraid you won't dare to brew the new wine and sell it, right? If Li Zixuan was here, he would definitely give Han Yushi 32 likes. This was what it meant to be advancing step by step and not be afraid in the face of danger. Master Xiao panicked, but he was unwilling to let Han Yushi take the initiative to control the situation like this. "Cut the crap. If worse comes to worst, I'll just take the formula far away and sell it to other merchants at a high price. I don't believe that Lu Guogong can find me. Quickly hand over the formula. Otherwise, you will not be able to avoid physical pain." He thought to himself, since he had already spent so much effort to capture Han Yushi, wouldn't it be a loss to let her go so easily? He would get the new wine formula first. As for the follow-up matters, he would go back and slowly discuss it with the second young master. Han Yushi's heart sank, and she had a bad feeling. She said stubbornly, "I don't know the formula and I won't give it to you." Master Xiao smiled coldly and said, "Fine. It seems like you're refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't think that I won't dare to do anything to you. Many people in the stronghold are drooling over your beautiful face." Han Yushi's face turned pale. The thing she was most worried about was still going to happen. She pretended to be fierce and shouted, "You dare? My young master won't let you go." Of course, Master Xiao didn't dare to be too ruthless. This Han Yushi had a strong personality. If she really killed someone, she would really have a life and death feud with Li Zixuan. In the end, it wouldn't be easy for him to clean up the mess. He was just deliberately scaring Han Yushi. Master Xiao pretended to be indifferent and said, "Hee, why wouldn't I dare? I advise you to obediently hand over the formula. After we verify its authenticity, we will let you go down the mountain." Han Yushi's heart was suddenly filled with despair. Master Zhao's words had blocked her last path. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about it. If it really didn't work, she could just say a fake formula to fool them. "What, you still don't want to say it? Then I'm going to call someone over," Master Xiao said with a fierce face. Han Yushi closed her eyes and clenched her teeth, ready to bite her tongue and commit suicide. At this moment, a scream suddenly came from outside. "Ouch!" Someone broke into the stronghold. Master Xiao frowned and looked at the bandit leader beside him. He asked, "What's going on?" The bandit leader shouted outside, "Men!" A small follower immediately came in from outside and hurriedly said, "Boss, there's a young man outside the stronghold. He's breaking into the stronghold. He even killed a few of our brothers." The bandit leader stared with his bell-like eyes. He stepped forward and grabbed the follower's collar. He angrily said, "You guys can't even beat a little kid?" The follower quickly said with a bitter face, "Boss, that young man's martial arts are too powerful." Master Xiao frowned and said, "Song Tiandao, get someone to guard this door. Don't mess around. Let's go out and take a look." It turned out that the bandit leader was called Song Tiandao. Song Tiandao nodded. After arranging the men, he went to the stronghold gate with Master Xiao and the others. The person who was breaking into the stronghold was Li Zixuan. He ran all the way and finally came to the vicinity of Mount Mang. After spending a lot of effort, he finally found the stronghold. He saw that the stronghold was located in the middle of a lofty mountain range. It was surrounded by cliffs. Only this 30 feet wide stronghold gate could be passed through. It was easy to defend and hard to attack. Li Zixuan took a breath and no longer wasted time. He planned to force his way in. At least he had to see Han Yushi first. He gathered his chi in his palm and threw out 2 pebbles. With his current power, just his hand strength alone had the strength of 1,000 pounds. The 2 pebbles instantly shot out like bullets and sank into the space between the eyebrows of the 2 bandits who were dozing off on the turret. Yes, Li Zixuan did not plan to leave anyone alive. From the moment he heard that Han Yushi was captured, he had been suppressing a killing intent in his heart. Anyone who dared to touch his woman must die. He used the cloud-piercing steps and directly crossed the stronghold gate. After the 2 bandits guarding the gate were killed, they directly fell to the ground. At that time, the bandits in the stronghold were already alarmed. At this time, they saw a young man jumping in from outside the stronghold gate. They immediately shouted and gathered their companions to surround Li Zixuan. "Where did this kid come from? How dare he kill our brothers of Bloody Wind stronghold? Does he want to die? Yes, how dare he come to our Bloody Wind stronghold to make trouble? Does he want to die? Brothers, chop him up and avenge Doggy and Doggy. Kill." Time was tight. Li Zixuan did not have the patience to listen to their nonsense. There were only 20 or 30 people in front of him. He was confident that he could deal with them. He directly used the 3rd move of the 9 Taishan swords, snow treading. Li Zixuan's footsteps changed cleverly. He waved his sword and attacked in all directions. The bandits only saw a blur in front of them. A moment later, they saw more than 10 bandits covering their throats and falling to the ground dead. This was the suppression of strength. Facing a group of bandits, most of whom had not even succeeded in chi drawing, Li Zixuan, a master at the peak of chi forming, was like an adult strong man bullying a newborn baby. Today was the first time Li Zixuan had killed someone. He did not feel any discomfort, nausea, or dizziness. He only thought of Han Yushi in his heart. There was only endless killing intent. He did not even look at the fallen bandit. The rest of the surviving bandits were scared out of their wit. Suddenly, a chill rose from the soles of their feet. They desperately retreated, and no one dared to come forward. Therefore, such a funny scene appeared. In the stronghold of the bandits, a young man with a long sword forced a group of bandits to retreat. When Song Tiandao came out, he happened to see this funny scene. Chapter 139. Baimang Mountain, Bloodwind Stronghold. Song Tiandao, Master Xiao, and the feminine man walked out side by side, followed by a black mass of bandit. Li Zixuan roughly glanced and estimated that there were at least 700 or 800 people. His heart sank as he did not expect the scale of this stronghold to be so large. His martial arts were indeed strong, but as the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Even if he was a master, he could still kill a master. He could deal with dozens of small fries, but with nearly 1,000 bandits, even if he was a master, he would still be beaten badly. Moreover, he had used Qing Gong to rush 7 or 8 miles. The true qi in his body was seriously consumed, which made things worse. I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be you, little bastard. I did not expect you to not fall to your death and dare to take the initiative to come to my door. But you came just in time. I, Song Tiandao, will avenge my second brother and third brother today. It was Song Tiandao who came to the front of the crowd. When he saw Li Zishuan, he suddenly felt a little familiar. Looking carefully, wasn't this the little kid who ruined their Bloodwind stronghold's business 2 months ago in the Zhongnan Mountains? New hatred and old hatred surged in his heart. Song Tiandao stepped out of the crowd and pointed at Li Zishuan and scolded. Master Xiao and the feminine man had not seen Li Zishuan before, but they often heard of him. At this time, they looked at Song Tiandao suspiciously. They did not expect Song Tiandao to have an old grudge with the young man in front of them. Li Zishuan smiled contemptuously. Loser, how dare you be arrogant? If you know what's good for you, quickly let Han Yushi go. Otherwise, I will flatten your stronghold today. When Song Tiandao heard Li Zishuan call him a loser, his face could not help but flash a trace of anger. 2 months ago, the robbery in the Zhongnan Mountains was the shame of his life. Not only did he not get the beauty, money, and goods, but he also lost his men and was ridiculed by the Lulin people. When he heard Li Zishuan threaten to flatten the stronghold, Song Tiandao laughed angrily. Oh, I did not expect the little kid to be a lord. I don't know which Java country you are a lord. You are really a don't yawn. What a big tone. We have more than 1,000 brothers. You want to try to flatten one? Ha! Ha ha, has this little brat watched too many dramas? That's right, that's right. How dare you come to our bloody wind stockade when you haven't even grown your hair? There was a burst of laughter among the bandits. Li Zishuan frowned. He exerted his strength to the tip of his foot and gently kicked the ground under his feet. Several stones shot out and flew towards Song Tiandao and the others. He had just taken the opportunity to recover his true qi. Although he had not recovered to his peak, he was almost there. He had not seen Han Yushi for so long, and the ominous premonition in his heart was getting stronger and stronger. He could not wait any longer. No matter how many bandits there were in front of him, he had to kill his way out. Song Tiandao, Master Xiao, and the feminine man easily avoided Li Zishuan's sneak attack. However, the bandits behind them did not have time to dodge. 4 or 5 bandits were instantly killed and fell to the ground. When the rest of the bandits saw this, they glared at Li Zishuan, but did not dare to say a word. Of course, Li Zishuan did not expect to kill the bandit leader with just this. His goal was only to enrage him. When people were angry, they would often lose their rationality. Perhaps the bandit leader would come out and fight him one-on-one in a fit of rage. In his previous life, when he read The Legend of the Sui and Tang heroes, he often saw that when 2 armies faced each other, they usually liked to fight the generals first. Although he was not sure if there would be such a thing in the real Tang dynasty, he still wanted to try. In a one-on-one fight, he was certainly not afraid of the defeated general. At that time, he might be able to capture him and save Han Yushi. Song Tiandao saw that Li Zishuan dared to kill his men under his nose. As expected, he was furious. He shouted angrily, "How dare you? Men, take my broadsword! Little child, you'd better tell me your name first. Otherwise, you'll be a nameless ghost after you die." Li Zishuan saw that Song Tiandao was indeed enraged and wanted to fight him one-on-one. He was delighted. At this moment, he looked at the hundreds of thatched cottages behind the bandits. He did not know where Han Yushi was locked up. He shouted loudly, "I am Li Zishuan, the man of Lantian County, who was personally conferred by the Emperor. You gathered in the forest and kidnapped my fiancée. If you don't want to die under the encirclement of the Imperial Army, immediately put down your weapons and hand over my fiancée. I will spare your lives." His shout contained a bit of true qi and traveled far. His purpose was to tell Han Yushi that he was here and to tell her not to do anything stupid. Han Yushi was in the house, like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Her heart was filled with despair. Suddenly, she heard Li Zishuan's voice. Her desperate heart was instantly filled with joy. When she heard Li Zixuan say, "my fiancé," Han Yushi could no longer hold it in and cried emotionally. She had waited for this sentence for a long time. Finally it came. In front of the stronghold, Master Shao was obviously stunned. He never expected that Li Zixuan could find Han Yushi so quickly after he captured her in the wilderness. He also did not expect that Li Zixuan would dare to break into the stronghold alone. He also did not expect that Han Yushi was Li Zixuan's fiancé. The situation was getting more and more serious. They only wanted the new wine formula. They did not intend to fight to the death with Li Zixuan. The hatred of snatching his wife was comparable to the hatred of killing his father. This time the grudge was big. Song Tiandao did not have so many scruples. His heart was full of hatred and anger. He raised the 9-eared chain knife that his subordinates carried over and scolded, "Bah, Grandpa, I don't care if you are some bullsh *T Master Jew. Last time, you ruined Grandpa's good deed, and caused my second and third brothers to be captured and beheaded by the Imperial Court's dog officials. Today, Grandpa, I want you to pay with your life. Hey, watch the knife." Song Tiandao took 2 steps and jumped up. He aimed at Li Zixuan's forehead and chopped it with great force. When the blade was less than an inch away from Li Zixuan's forehead, Li Zixuan's body leaned back, showing a strange 20-degree angle with the ground. Taking advantage of this gap, he lifted the sword with one hand and pushed the blade away. His other hand gently supported himself on the ground. His whole body drew a semicircle with his heel as the center. With such a fall, a lift, and a turn, Song Tiandao's powerful killing blow was easily resolved by Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan did not stop. He used the third sword of 9 Taishian swords, snow treading. Song Tiandao suddenly felt his eyes blur. Then, he felt that every part of his body was about to be attacked. Song Tiandao was shocked. He did not understand why this little boy's skill had improved so much in just 2 months. He desperately waved the big knife, trying to protect the vital parts of his body. However, he was only at the peak of body refining and had not yet reached the Qi transformation realm. How could he be Li Zixuan's opponent? After a while, he could not hold on anymore. His body had suffered more than 10 minor injuries. Li Zixuan saw that the time was right. He poured genuine qi into his feet and used the orchid butterfly steps, ready to capture Song Tiandao. At this moment, Li Zixuan saw a strange black shadow suddenly flash in front of Song Tiandao. Its speed was so fast that it was not inferior to his orchid butterfly steps in the slightest. He saw the black shadow reach out and pull Song Tiandao out of the battle. Li Zixuan was furious. This person did not follow the rules. He directly used his fastest sword, the 5th sword of 9 Taishian swords, parting the dust. The sword parted the dust and was bleak and cold. It went straight for Song Tiandao's back. Since he could not capture him, he would kill him. After killing so many people, Li Zixuan's killing intent was getting heavier and heavier. Song Tiandao only felt a cold chill piercing his back. He secretly said, "My life is over." The feminine man next to him had no time to save him. The main reason was that Li Zixuan's sword was too fast. At the critical moment, Master Shao flung his sleeve. An iron ball flew out and hit Li Zixuan's sword. This sure-kill sword finally deviated from its trajectory and only cut off Song Tiandao's left arm. A thick and heavy arm fell to the ground with a clang. Even though Li Zixuan hurriedly retreated, he was still splashed by the blood from Song Tiandao's shoulder. Suddenly, his white clothes turned red. The elegant young master turned into a demon god. Chapter 140. Silence. The bandits were cheering for their leader's bravery, but in the blink of an eye, Song Tiandao's arm was cut off and he almost died. They were all scared out of their wits and stood rooted to the ground. Master Zhao's heart was also in turmoil. He and the second young master had focused on Li Zixuan's ability to make money, but they didn't make a correct assessment of Li Zixuan's strength. They didn't expect this weak youth to have such high martial arts. It was really unexpected. Li Zixuan returned to his original spot and secretly used the Taishan Sutra to recover his internal energy. In the battle just now, he had used up 20 to 30% of his qi. Leader Song, you can't beat him one-on-one, so you plan to fight together? Li Zixuan said sarcastically. Song Tiandao covered his right arm and his face was pale. Facing Li Zixuan's sarcasm, he had nothing to say and could only stare back angrily. On the other hand, the skinny man who had just rushed in walked out with one hand on his waist and the other hand on his thumb and middle finger. He said in a sweet voice, "Io, our Lord Li is young and has a high position. His martial arts are also so good. My little heart is beating fast. Lord Zhu, why are you so angry? Why don't I accompany you to the front of the flowers under the moon?" Ugh, Li Zixuan was disgusted. He quickly jumped away and scolded, "Damn transvestite, stop! You're neither yin nor yang, hiding your head and tail. I don't think you're a good person either." He didn't expect to meet a transvestite in ancient times. It was really disgusting. The transvestite pointed at Li Zixuan with his thumb and middle finger and said unhappily, "How can you say that to me? I'm so sad. Do you think I'm willing to cover my face in such hot weather? I'm just afraid that you guys won't be able to walk if I take off my veil. Also, what's a transvestite? Why do you say I'm a transvestite?" Cough cough. Master Shao couldn't help but retch. He shouted, "Flying Snake, come back. Don't mess around." Flying Snake. This person was actually the Flying Snake who went to the Han village to steal wine last time. Flying Snake waved his hand discontentedly and said, "Master Shao, let me interact with this handsome young man." Li Zixuan was furious. He pointed his sword at the Flying Snake and cursed, "What bullshit, Flying Snake? You just disturbed my duel with Song Tiandao. Now I will turn you into a dead snake." Li Zixuan had secretly observed that this Flying Snake was only in the middle stage of qi transformation, but his movements were too strange. As long as Master Shao didn't interfere, Li Zixuan was confident that he could defeat him. Yo, since you're so fierce to me, I'll play with you." After saying this, the Flying Snake's aura suddenly changed. He was no longer as frivolous as before. He took the initiative to move forward, and 3 arc-shaped spikes suddenly extended from his sleeves. They emitted a faint blue light, and were obviously dipped in poison. The Flying Snake waved his spikes and clawed fiercely at Li Zixuan's face. Li Zixuan had long been on guard against this person's ghostly speed. As soon as the Flying Snake moved, he had already channeled his strength to his feet. Seeing the Flying Snake's poisonous spikes attack, he dodged to the side, raised his sword, and slashed at the 3 poisonous spikes. The swords and spikes clashed. Metal clanged and sparks flew in all directions. Both of them were sent flying. The chasing wind sword could cut through iron like mud. Li Zixuan originally thought that this sword could cut through the spike. Who knew that the result would be like this? It seemed that the Flying Snake's weapon was not ordinary. Li Zixuan adjusted his body and used the first 5 moves of the 9 Taishan swords: Riding Wind, Graceful Grace, Snow Treading, Wave Breaker, and Parting Dust. He wanted to end this battle quickly. The Flying Snake had previously seen Li Zixuan use Snow Treading and Parting Dust. At that time, he had been amazed by the exquisiteness of Li Zixuan's swordsmanship. However, he had never imagined that this was a complete set of swordsmanship. Furthermore, as he continuously used them, his attacks were endless. Each move was fiercer than the last. The Flying Snake could only rely on his ghostly body movements to barely block. However, when Li Zixuan used his final move, Parting Dust, the Flying Snake could clearly see that this move was exactly the same as the one that had cut off Song Tiandao's left arm. However, it was even faster than before. It was truly as fast as flowing light. This was the superposition effect of the 9 Taishan swords. Faced with this extraordinary parting dust sword, the flying snake had no time to dodge. Even Master Xiao, who was beside him, could not save him. Without any suspense, this sword pierced the flying snake's throat. The flying snake cried out twice. His neck tilted and he became a dead snake. Master Zhao's eyes widened. Just as he was about to attack Li Zixuan, a masked man suddenly appeared and whispered a few words into his ear. A trace of panic flashed through Master Zhao's eyes. He ignored Song Tiandao and the other bandits, and led the rest of the black-clothed men to retreat. Li Zixuan felt somewhat baffled. Song Tiandao felt even more incredulous. He cried out, "Hey, Master Xiao, where are you going?" However, the other party simply ignored him. Song Tiandao stomped his feet in anger. He looked at Li Zixuan and said hatefully, "Little bastard, you're really good at fighting. Then I, your grandfather, will see if you can beat over 1,000 of us. Brothers, let's go. Chop this bastard up and avenge the second and third masters. Whoever can cut this brat once will be rewarded with 10 strings of cash." With such a great reward, brave men were bound to emerge. Moreover, it was 1,000 people against one person. The bandits' fighting spirit immediately soared. They waved the weapons in their hands and rushed toward Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan's face darkened. He didn't expect Song Tiandao to be so shameless. The thing he was most worried about had happened. There was no other way. He could only fight head-on. Li Zixuan gritted his teeth and took the initiative to attack. He used his body to his advantage in the crowd. While constantly dodging attacks, he used the wind-chasing sword in his hand to harvest lives. Song Tiandao retreated far away. He looked at Li Zixuan in the crowd and sneered. He didn't believe that this brat would never run out of strength. Song Tiandao was right. After all, Li Zixuan was only at the peak of the qi refining stage. He hadn't reached the supreme power level yet. After half an hour, although he had killed 70 or 80 bandits, his genuine qi had been almost exhausted. He also had more than 10 knife wounds on his body. Li Zixuan felt a little powerless. No matter how good his kung fu was, he was still afraid of a kitchen knife. If he could get out of here alive today, he must get some high-tech weapons to defend himself. Damn it, how dare you bully my brother? Wooden face, hurry up and let your men kill them. Just when Li Zixuan was feeling desperate, he suddenly heard Qing Chumo's voice behind him. He used the last of his genuine qi and used the orchid butterfly steps to escape the battle in an instant. He retreated to Qing Chumo's side and said angrily, "Damn it, if you had come a little later, I would have died." Qing Chumo hurriedly supported him and said heartlessly, "Didn't I come? Little Xian, hurry up and rest. These bastards dare to bully people with numbers. Old Qing, will let them see what it means to have a lot of people. Wooden face, hurry up." Li Zixuan looked back and saw an old acquaintance. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your trouble, General Dugu." Dugu Xian bowed and said, "This is this general's duty." Today was different from the past. Li Zixuan was now a noble, so the necessary respect was indispensable. Dugu Xian waved his hand. 1,000 featherwood guards in bright armor entered in a line with murderous intent. It's the imperial court's officers and soldiers. It's the featherwood guards. It's over. Run. When the numerous mountain bandits saw the dense mass of soldiers swarming in from the stronghold gate, they were immediately thrown into disarray and were about to scatter and flee. They were nothing more than a motley crew. How could they dare to cross hands with the elite regular army of the Featherwood Guard? All officers and soldiers, listen to my order. Don't let anyone go. If there is resistance, kill without mercy. Yes. The bandits pushed and shoved each other in panic. The well-trained Featherwood Guards wrapped all the bandits like dumplings in a moment. There were also bandits who were unwilling to be captured and wanted to kill their way out of the encirclement. However, they were cut down by the Featherwood Guards in a few rounds. As the Imperial army, if they couldn't even defeat the bandits, then wouldn't they, the Featherwood Guards, be laughed at by the other armies? Song Tiandao also wanted to run, but he was surrounded by people. He was seriously injured and couldn't run. A small bandit next to him said with dissatisfaction, "Boss, who did you catch in the end? How did you provoke the Featherwood Guards?" Song Tiandao said angrily, "How the hell did I know that girl's background was so big? It was Master Xiao who paid me 3,000 strings of cash to catch her. It doesn't seem like it's just the Featherwood Guards? How come there are people behind them? Hey, that seems to be Lu Guogong. I've seen him before in Chang'an City. First Master, you've put us in a lot of trouble. Why did you provoke that madman Lu Guogong?" Song Tiandao said with displeasure, "Motherf Ker, you were more active than anyone else when it came to splitting the money. Now you have the face to say this? Hey, that's Yi Guogong. And Wu Guogong." It turned out to be the Eastern Palace Imperial Guards following behind the Featherwood Guards. Cheng Yaojin, Qin Qiong, Yuchi Jingda, Niu Jinda, and the others all rushed over one after another. The bandits were scared out of their wit. They never thought that they would alarm so many important people. Now their legs were weak. How could they dare to run? They could only pray that they would suffer less after being caught. Ching Chumo laughed arrogantly at the bandits. "Haha, you want to compete with Laozi in terms of numbers? Motherf Ker, come out and fight again." Li Zishuan ignored that fool. After he thanked Cheng Yaojin and the others, he quickly called a bandit to take him to find Han Yushi. People often don't know how precious they are until they lose something. He really wanted to see Han Yushi right now. He didn't want to wait a moment longer. Chapter 141. The underling led Li Zishuan through many twists and turns before arriving at a small, shabby hut. Then, he respectfully said, "Lord Zhu, it's here." Li Zishuan nodded and said, "Go squat in front of the stockade by yourself. Don't think about running away. As long as you haven't committed murder or arson, I'll get someone to give you a lighter punishment." The henchman immediately bowed excitedly and said, "Thank you, Lord Zhu." "Don't worry, Lord Zhu. I definitely won't dare to run away." Li Zishuan waved his hand and sent him away. Then, he pushed the door open and entered. He saw Han Yushi's hands tied to the pillar. She was looking at him with tears in her eyes. Li Zishuan hurriedly went forward and helped Han Yushi untie the rope. He grabbed her shoulder and asked with concern, "Yushi, are you okay? They didn't do anything to you, right?" Han Yushi shook her head. She looked at Li Zishuan's tattered and blood-stained clothes. She thought of the person in front of her running dozens of miles alone and ignoring the danger. He went deep into the nest of thousands of bandits to save her. She could not help but say sadly, "Young master, why are you so seriously injured?" "It's all my fault. I caused Uncle Hu's death and young master's injury. Yushi is an inauspicious person." Sob sob. Li Zishuan's heart melted when he heard Han Yushi's crying. He ignored the pain in his arm and pulled Han Yushi into his arms. He said gently, "Nonsense. How can you be an inauspicious person? Yushi, you're a fairy given to me by the heavens. At the same time, you're a demon sent to me by the heavens." Han Yushi was obviously stunned when she heard these contradictory words. She stopped crying and looked up at Li Zishuan. "Young master, how can I be a demon?" Li Zishuan stared at Han Yushi's beautiful face that was still stained with tears. He brewed his emotions and said in a slightly magnetic voice, "Yushi, no matter how many lives the flower blooms and how many times the flower falls, no matter where the wind rises and where the wind stops, you will never be able to escape, because you know in your heart that you are my inner demon." Han Yushi had never heard such touching words of love. She could no longer hold it in and threw herself into Li Zishuan's arms. She hugged him tightly and cried bitterly, sob sob, "Young master, Yushi is not worth your effort. Yushi is not worth it. Yushi even killed Uncle Hu before," sob sob. Han Yushi hugged him too tightly. Although Li Zixuan grimaced in pain and gasped, he couldn't bear to break such a warm and romantic atmosphere. He could only grit his teeth and endure. He stroked Han Yushi's soft long hair and said softly, "Silly girl, who said that uncle who is dead? He's not dead yet. He's being treated at the Imperial Physician's Department." Han Yushi raised her delicate tear-stained face and said in disbelief, "Young master, are you saying that uncle who is still alive? Young master, is this true?" Li Zixuan nodded. Although old Li Zixuan's injuries were serious, his vital parts were not injured. Li Zixuan believed that with Sun Simiao's medical skills, he would definitely be able to save old Hu. Uncle Hu is indeed still alive. Yushi, don't blame yourself for everything. It's my fault. I didn't protect you well. Han Yushi quickly shook her head and said, "It's not young master's fault. It's not young master's fault." Li Zixuan stroked her cheek and said affectionately, "Yushi, marry Yushi. Yushi, marry me. Let me protect you for the rest of your life. You are my inner demon. I can't leave you. I want to turn my inner demon into a fairy who will accompany me for the rest of my life. I want to love you until we grow old." "Ah, young master." Han Yushi was so embarrassed by such straightforward words of love that her face turned red. With a cry, she plunged into Li Zixuan's arms like an ostrich. Li Zixuan scratched his head awkwardly. He had racked his brains to recall these words of love from some movies and television works in his previous life. Did Han Yushi agree or not? "Yushi, are you not willing?" Li Zixuan probed carefully. When Han Yushi heard Li Zixuan ask such an idiotic question, she couldn't help but secretly roll her eyes. She thought to herself, young master's words of love before were quite touching, but why is his EQ still so low? However, she was also afraid that Li Zixuan would really misunderstand, so she quickly said, "Young master, Yushi is willing." "Ha ha!" Li Zixuan carried Han Yushi in his arms and spun around in a circle with pride and excitement. He laughed and said, "Ha ha, that's great. Yushi, you finally agreed." Hiss, in the end, this guy's extreme joy turned to sorrow. It affected the wound on his back, and he gasped in pain. Han Yushi first thought to herself, "What do you mean by I finally agreed? It's you who finally said that you love me, silly young master." Behind him, he heard Li Zixuan's cry of pain. He quickly pulled Li Zixuan's hand and asked anxiously, "Young master, where do you hurt? Let me take a look." Li Zixuan waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "It's just a small injury. It's fine, it's fine." He looked at Han Yushi's stunning face and delicate red lip. For a moment, he couldn't help but feel a little restless. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and murmured, "Yushi, whom?" Han Yushi raised her small face and looked at Li Zixuan curiously. She saw that handsome face getting closer and closer to her. She also realized what was going to happen next. After hesitating for a moment, she didn't refuse. She closed her eyes and nervously clenched her hands, waiting for the sacred moment to arrive. When Li Zixuan saw that Han Yushi finally put on a look of letting him do whatever he wanted, his index finger couldn't help but move. His heart was also beating wildly with excitement. He tried his best to slowly get closer to Han Yushi's delicate lips, afraid that he would wake up this stunning beauty who was in a deep sleep. At this moment, he could even smell Han Yushi's body fragrance. He was only 0.01 centimeters away from Han Yushi's red lip. He heard Qing Chumo shouting from not far away, "Little Xian, we're going back to the city. Hurry up." Han Yushi suddenly woke up. She was afraid that Qing Chumo, who was not far away, would barge in. She hurriedly broke free from Li Zixuan's embrace, and stood at the side with her head lowered shyly. "Ciao, Qing Chumo, I won't live under the same sky as you." Li Zixuan roared at the sky unwillingly. The thousands of troops finally set off and returned to Chang'an. Among them were less than 1,000 bandits. Li Zixuan held Han Yushi's hand and walked at the back, mainly to take care of Han Yushi's emotions. This little girl was now so shy that she didn't dare to see anyone. Even when Qin Xiong came over to talk to her, she didn't dare to raise her head. She only stared at the tip of her feet and reluctantly replied with a mosquito-like voice. Cheng Yaojin, Qin Xiong, and the others all laughed knowingly. They let the accompanying military doctor treat Li Zixuan's wounds simply and let the young couple show off their love sweetly at the back. Qing Chumo also wanted to come over and be a troublemaker before, but he was slapped back by Cheng Yaojin and scolded, "You little bastard, why don't you hurry up and find a good girl to marry into the family? Why are you running over there blindly to meddle? Look at little Xian. He's so young, but he's already kidnapped a beautiful little girl." Cheng Yaojin's words were too King heart-wrenching. Qing Chumo's expression suddenly looked as if he had eaten a pile of shit. He secretly hated Li Zixuan for not being a good brother. He actually found a wife first, causing him, a single young man, to be scolded by his father. Chapter 142. The sun was setting in the west. This huge team of more than 2,000 people finally arrived at the east side of Chang'an City. In the team, there were handsome and energetic generals, tall and heroic dukes, well-trained soldiers in bright armor, simple but powerful family generals, ragged and dispirited bandits, and even more strange was that there was a team of strong men carrying a white horse. Of course, there was also a pair of adulterous couple, who were holding hands and showing off their affection to the crowd. That's right, at least that's what Qing Chumo thought to himself about Li Zixuan. The white horse that was being carried was the horse that was stabbed by vines on the way to Xiefeng Stockade Village by Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan spent money to hire 10 relatively young Qing family guards to carry the horse back home. At that time, these men refused to take the money. Later, Li Zixuan said, "If anyone dares not to take the money, I will pay a few children to pee in front of your door every day." The 10 guards wiped away the cold sweat on their foreheads and hurriedly took the money from Li Zixuan. They secretly thought that this young master was truly rich and willful. However, this way of thinking was truly too immoral. Han Yushi looked at the familiar Yenching Gate and felt that it was a lifetime ago. During the few hours when she was taken away, she was frightened all the way. She was afraid that the bandits would ruin her innocence, and she was prepared to die to protect her innocence. Later, when she was full of despair, Li Zixuan went deep into the village alone to save her. She really did not expect that she could be saved so quickly. After all, Xiefeng Stockade Village was in the wilderness. It was not easy to find it in such a short time. Thinking of this, Han Yushi could not help but hold his hand tighter, as if this would make her feel safer. They were about to enter the city. Han Yushi did not intend to let Li Zixuan let go of her hand. Although it was embarrassing to be pointed at by so many people, she thought that since the young master liked to hold her hand, then let him hold it. If others liked to say it, then let them say it. She was the young master's woman for the rest of her life. Even if the young master wanted her to die now, she was willing to do so. Holding hands was a small matter, and she could just follow the young master's temperament. As for Li Zixuan, ever since this fellow held Han Yushi's smooth and soft little hand, he could not bear to part with this wonderful touch. Today, he had finally won Han Yushi's hand with great difficulty, so he could not bear to let go. If he wanted to hold her hand, he would hold her hand for a lifetime. It had to be said that after experiencing life and death, Han Yushi and Li Zixuan's attitude towards each other had changed greatly. When the citizens of the city saw such a complicated and strange team, they couldn't help but discuss among themselves. Where did so many troops come from? It's been a long time since I've seen so many troops move out together. I don't know. It looks like the Featherwood Guard. Could it be that there's a war somewhere? Hey, why did the Featherwood Guard send so many people? Do you think these people are bandits? I think they are quite similar. Hey, isn't that Duke Lu? There's also Duke Yi and Duke Wu. Heavens, where are these bandits so powerful that they can even alarm these dukes to personally suppress the bandit? Hey, who said they weren't? These bandits really don't have eyes. How can they casually provoke these people in Chang'an City? When Song Tiandao heard these people's discussion, he felt so wronged that he was about to cry. Was he willing to provoke the Featherwood Guard, Qing Yaojin, and other big shots? How could he know that a little country girl would have such great power behind her? Song Tiandao was now cursing Master Xiao in his heart. If it weren't for him, he would still be the head of the carefree camp in the mountain stronghold. As a result, not only did he not get the 3,000 strings of cash, but he also became a prisoner. Thinking about how Li Zixuan was alone among thousands of people in the mountain stronghold, as if he was in a no-man's land. With a long sword, he killed people like cutting melons and vegetables. Thinking of this, Song Tiandao felt goosebumps all over his body. This was not something a 14 or 15-year-old child would do. This was much more ferocious than the authentic bandit. Song Tiandao looked at Qing Yaojin, Qin Qiong, and other big shots in front of him, and then secretly glanced back at Li Zixuan, who was talking about love. He couldn't help but feel despair in his heart. He didn't know what kind of cruel punishment was waiting for him. Yushi, let's go to the Imperial Medical Department to see Uncle Zhang first, and then turn back home. Li Zixuan thought about it and suggested. The main thing was that he was now injured all over. When he went back, his mother would definitely be distressed. Moreover, she might even resent Han Yushi because of this. After all, her son was seriously injured in order to save her. Li Zixuan was sure that according to his mother's personality, this kind of thing could really happen. In order to avoid affecting their relationship, Li Zixuan decided to go to the Imperial Medical Department to see old Hu first, treat his wounds, and change his clothes before going home. Han Yushi didn't know that Li Zixuan had secretly thought so much for her. Hearing this, she raised her head and said, "Young master, you're going back so late. Will master and madam be worried? Why don't you go home first while Yushi goes to see Uncle Hu?" Li Zixuan smiled and said, "It's okay. I'll send someone back to report that I'm safe." He brought Han Yushi to the front of the group, bowed to Qin Qiong, Qing Yaojin, Yuqi Jingda, and Niu Jinda, and said sincerely, "I thank all of you for your help today. In 2 days, I will hold a banquet at the Drunken Immortal restaurant. I will use the strongest wine and the most delicious dishes to entertain all of you." Qing Yaojin laughed loudly and said, "Haha, good boy, I like hearing these words." Yuqi Jingda and Niu Jinda nodded with a smile. Although part of the reason they came today was because of Li Zixuan, it was mainly because of Qin Qiong. Qin Qiong smiled and said, "Little Xian, you don't have to be so polite to me. Yushi is my adopted daughter. You went to save her alone. I should thank you." Li Zixuan repeatedly said that he didn't dare. He thanked Dugu Xian again, and asked him to investigate the person behind this group of bandit. Then, he bid farewell to Qin Qiong and said, "Uncle Qin, I'll bring Yushi to the Imperial Medical Department to see Uncle Hu first." Qin Qiong nodded and said solemnly, "Speaking of which, this Hu Hanyun was injured because of Yushi. It's already late today, so I won't go over. Little Xian, you have to thank him on my behalf. I'll visit him personally another day." Li Zixuan replied, "Don't worry, Uncle Qin. I will." Qin Qiong looked at Han Yushi and said, "Yushi, you have to visit your adoptive mother tomorrow. She has been talking about you. When she heard that something happened to you, she was worried sick at home." Han Yushi bowed and said, "Yes, adoptive father. Yushi will definitely visit adoptive mother tomorrow." Qin Qiong smiled and waved his hand. He said kindly, "Good child, quickly go to the Imperial Medical Department." Chapter 143. Uncle Hu, are you all right? Li Zixuan and Han Yushi came to the Imperial Physician's office, and asked about old Hu's room. They pushed the door open and entered. They saw that Hu was indeed serving old Hu, who was wrapped up like a dumpling, medicine. He quickly walked over and asked. When old Hu saw Li Zishuan come in, he quickly pushed the medicine bowl away and smiled at Li Zishuan. Young master, you're here. I'm here today to thank you for helping Zhen Jing and Zhen Jing find a miracle doctor. Sigh, it's great that you saved the Han family's girl so quickly. Otherwise, I, old Hu, would never have the face to return to the Han family village. Hearing this, Han Yushi said with red eyes, Uncle Hu, please don't say that. It's all Yushi's fault that you're so seriously injured. If anything happens to you, Yushi won't have the face to see Aunt Lu. Old Hu said indifferently, Sigh, this injury is nothing. When I was fighting in the early years, I was injured more seriously than this several times, but I'm still fine. Han girl, young master, don't worry. I, old Hu, have a tough life. What do you mean by fine? You broke 12 bones and lost more than half a liter of blood. If your injuries were more serious, I'm afraid you would have died. At this moment, Sun Simiao walked in and said angrily. Behind him, Hu Zhen, who had a white cloth wrapped around his eyes, followed. When old Hu heard Sun Simiao scolding, he laughed embarrassedly and didn't say anything else. Patients were always in awe of doctors. Seeing Sun Simiao come in, Han Yushi bowed to him. Then, she went to pull Hu Zhen to the side. Li Zishuan stood up and cupped his hands to Sun Simiao. Daoist son, is Uncle Hu's injury serious? He was shocked when he heard Sun Simiao say that it was so serious. He secretly thought that old Hu was really tough. If it were someone else with such a serious injury, they probably wouldn't have been able to hold on. Sun Simiao said with a serious expression, The injury is very serious. I'm afraid it will take at least 3 months to recover. Xiao Xian, your injury isn't light either. I'll get someone to bandage it for you first. Li Zishuan breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they were fine, everything was fine. He nodded and said, Thank you, Daoist Sunday. Sun Simiao summoned 2 doctors from the Imperial Physician Department. He planned to clean and bandage Li Zishuan in this room. Han Yushi quickly brought Hu out of the door. Daoist son, how is your illness? Inside the room, Li Zishuan gritted his teeth as he endured the doctor's bandaging while looking at Sun Simiao, who was examining old Hu's injuries. If it weren't for what happened today, he would have come to see Sun Simiao treat Hu Jing and his younger brother in the morning. In the end, he didn't come. Instead, he sent old Hu over. It could be said that the family of 3 was reunited in the Imperial Medical Department. Sun Simiao replied, as expected, Hu is only born with a stutter. He is not mentally retarded. I will perform acupuncture on him for a few days and prescribe him some special medicine. In less than 10 days, he should be able to speak fluently. Li Zishuan looked at Hu Jing next to him with joy. The little fatty scratched his head and smiled gratefully at him. Sun Simiao continued, As for Hu Jing, alas, this child was born with a natural blockage in her Tong Zi Chang acupoint and Qingqi acupoint. I previously performed acupuncture on her, but I didn't manage to open these 2 blocked acupoints. I can only supplement it with herbs and acupuncture. Old Hu, who was lying on the bed, said worriedly, Dr. Sun, can my daughter's eyes be cured? This child can't see at such a young age. What will she do in the future? Sun Simiao thought for a moment and nodded. It can definitely be cured. As the saying goes, a rope can cut a wood, and dripping water can penetrate a stone. Her blocked acupoints are not unbreakable, but it will take a lot of time to cure her eyes. Old Hu's eyes widened in surprise. He pleaded excitedly, Dr. Sun, please save my daughter. I beg divine Dr. Sun to save my daughter. This child has suffered too much since she was young. Every time I see this child's eyes, I, old Hu, feel heartache. As long as you can help my daughter see the light again, I, Hu Hanyun, am willing to do everything I can and serve you for the rest of my life. Li Zishuan also said, priest's son, since this child's eyes can be cured, please help. You can use whatever herbs you need. All the expenses will be on me. Old Hu said in surprise, Young master, how can I do that? Sun Simiao patted Old Hu on the shoulder with a smile and said, Why not? Xiaoxian is so rich. Who else can pay for him? Don't worry. How can I not save a dying child? This penniless Taoist will definitely save this child. Old Hu said happily, Thank you, Dr. Sunday. Thank you, young master. Sun Simiao nodded and said, It's just that it will take a long time to cure this child's eyes, and I have to do acupuncture every day without stopping. But I can only stay in Chang'an for a month. If you want her to see the light again, this child must leave Chang'an with me in a month. After her eyes are cured, I will send her back to Chang'an. Old Hu lowered his head and thought for a moment. Sun Simiao was really a person of virtue and prestige. If his child went with him, he should be at ease. So he cupped his hands and said, Then I will leave my daughter to you, Priest Sunday. I can't repay your kindness. If you need me in the future, I will not hesitate. Li Zixuan suddenly remembered a conversation with Hu Jingjing. He suddenly had an idea and said to Sun Simiao, Priest son, since she will follow you from now on, why don't you teach her some medical skills? I have talked with her before and found that this child is quite interested in medical skills. You have cured countless people in your life, but your strength is limited. Why don't you teach a few disciples and pass down your medical skills so that more people can benefit? Hearing this, Sun Simiao's eyes lit up. He stroked his beard and said, This child is indifferent. She is quite suitable to learn medicine. I will teach her some basic medical knowledge in the next 2 days. If this child is really talented, I will accept her as my disciple. Old Hu said happily, Thank you, divine doctor. Sun Simiao was the best doctor in the Tang Empire. If his daughter learned medicine from him, she would have another survival skill in the future. This was a great kindness. After half an hour, Li Zixuan's wounds were all bandaged. Sun Simiao asked someone to send a clean set of clothes. Li Zixuan changed hastily and went out to find Han Yushi, planning to go home. Han Yushi saw that Li Zixuan's clothes were messy and hurried over to help him tidy up his clothes. This ambiguous posture made Li Zixuan's index finger twitch. If it wasn't for the wrong place, he really wanted to do this girl. Sun Simiao coughed dryly behind her. Han Yushi hurriedly helped Li Zixuan tidy up his clothes. Li Zixuan looked and found that from the outside, it was impossible to tell that he had been injured today. Only then did he nod his head in satisfaction. Old Hu's injuries were too serious and it was inconvenient for him to move. Hu actually had to stay by Sun Simiao's side recently. As expected, Hu had to stay in the Imperial Medical Department to take care of her father. Therefore, when they returned, only Li Zixuan and Han Yushi were with them. Chapter 144. Yongla Lane, Li Residence. Ever since Li Zixuan returned to his room in the morning with his sword and left on his horse, the entire Li residence was in chaos. When the servant girl returned to the east courtyard and reported what had happened to Madame Li almost fainted from shock. She hurriedly sent someone to invite Li Jingmo back from the West City. When Li Jingmo returned, he heard that Han Tianhu's daughter had been taken away and that his son had disobeyed the imperial decree and gone to the village alone to save her. He was so angry that his face darkened. He couldn't help but curse, this unfilial son. Ouch! Who are you calling an unfilial son? Our son is in danger now. As his father, you don't think of a way to save him. Instead, you're making sarcastic remarks. Are you Xian Er's father or not? Mrs. Li was already anxious. Now that she heard her husband scold her precious son as an unfilial son, how could she hold herself back? She used the 9-yin white bone claw to viciously vent her anger on Li Jingmo's waist. When Li Jingmo heard the second half of his wife's words, His already dark face became as dark as the bottom of a pot. However, due to his wife's many years of power, he didn't dare to say anything. He could only wave his hand and say, "Madam, calm down. Your husband will think of a way right now." Madame Li released her hand hatefully. Li Jingmo rubbed his waist as his mind raced to think of a way. His unfilial son's words were of course words spoken in anger. His concern for his son was no less than his wife. "Madam, don't be anxious. Your husband will personally go to Duke Lu's residence to ask for help. Duke Lu treats Xian like a nephew. He is also a veteran who has led troops for many years. He will definitely be able to save Xian." Li Jingmo thought about it and felt that this was the only way at present. Madame Li said anxiously, "Then go quickly, master." Li Jingmo nodded and spurred his horse out the door. An hour later, Li Jingmo returned. "Master, how is it? Is Duke Lu willing to save Xian?" Madame Li asked as soon as Li Jingmo entered. Li Jingmo handed the reins to the servant and said to his wife, "Madam, I just went to the house of Duke and didn't run into Duke Lu. The servants in their house said that Duke Lu and Duke Yi brought their family to save Han Yushi and Xian." Madame Li said in pleasant surprise, "That's great. Master, with Duke Lu and Duke Yi taking action, our Xian won't be in any danger, right?" When Li Jingmo saw his wife looking at him expectantly, he hurriedly nodded affirmatively and comforted her. Of course, High Duke Lu and High Duke Yi were both great generals who could fight against 100 men on their own back in the day. The two High Dukes didn't even take a few bandits seriously. On the way back, I heard that His Majesty had sent 1,000 Yulin guards to assist Xian in exterminating the bandits. "Madam, don't worry. Xian will definitely be fine." Madame Li was slightly relieved. When she heard the second half of Li Jingmo's words, she said in disbelief, "Master, Xian defied the imperial edict and didn't answer the summons. Not only did His Majesty not punish him, he even sent troops to help Xian. What's the reason for this?" Li Jingmo was also somewhat bewildered. He shook his head and said, "I don't know. Let's just wait for Xian to return safely." The couple waited for half a day. During this time, Lan and Iron Egg also heard about this matter. Although the two little ones were anxious, this was an adult matter and they couldn't help much. Thus, the two children stayed in the front hall and waited with Li Jingmo and his wife. The servants in the house also noticed that the atmosphere in the house wasn't right today. Every one of them was extremely careful, afraid that they would make a mistake. In the evening, Sanbao rushed in and said excitedly, "Master, Madam, the Yulin guards have already entered the city. Young Master and young Miss Yushi are inside, and will probably be back soon." Madame Li stood up excitedly and looked at Li Jingmo. She said in a trembling voice, "Master, Xian is back. Xian is back." As she spoke, she couldn't help but cry. Although Li Jingmo comforted her that her son would be fine, she had waited for so long without seeing her son. God knew how much suffering she had experienced as a mother. Now that she finally heard the news of her son's safe return, her suspended heart finally settled. Li Jingmo patted Madame Li's shoulder lightly and said with a smile, "Madam, you don't have to worry now. I said before that Xian will be fine." At this time, Lan also cried out happily, "Mother, don't cry. Lan knows that Big Brother is the best. He will definitely be fine." Iron Egg heard that his sister and young master were fine and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After waiting for half an hour, what they waited for wasn't Li Zishuan, but their family's white horse. Madame Li asked the horse carriers where Li Zishuan went and was told that Li Zishuan and Han Yushi had gone to the Imperial Medical Department to visit Hu Hanyun. When Madame Li heard this, she was secretly annoyed at her son's thoughtlessness. He didn't even know to come back and see his parents first. It wasn't until nightfall that Li Zishuan led Han Yushi back home. Lan was the first to run over. She held Li Zishuan's hand and asked, "Big brother, are you okay?" Lan and mother were worried sick. When Li Zishuan heard this, he patted Lan Er's head with heartache and said, "Big brother is fine." Madame Li and Li Jingma also walked out at this time. Madame Li hurriedly stepped forward and held Li Zishuan's arms with both hands. She carefully examined Li Zishuan's body for a while before saying, "Xian'er, are you hurt?" Li Zishuan hurriedly pretended to be relaxed and said, "Mother, I'm not hurt at all. Don't worry, I've learned martial arts for so many years. I'm very powerful." Lan interjected, "Mother, you see, Lan already said that Big Brother's martial arts are the best. He'll definitely be fine." At this time, Iron Egg ran over to greet Li Zishuan first. Then, he went to Han Yushi's side and asked softly, "Big sister, are you okay?" Han Yushi shook her head and whispered, "Big sister is fine." At this time, Madame Li looked at Han Yushi with a complicated expression. Every mother was selfish when it came to their children. She did like Han Yushi before, but today, her son was in danger because of her. Madame Li's heart more or less had a knot in it. "Miss Han, it's good that you're okay." Madame Li thought for a long time, but still said this in a neutral tone. Han Yushi's pretty face turned pale when she heard these obviously distant words. She immediately realized that Madame Li had distanced herself from her because of what happened today. She was so anxious that tears almost rolled out. She held back her sadness and hurriedly bowed down. "Madam, it's Yushi's fault. Yushi caused young master to be in danger. Yushi has let master and madam down." Li Zishuan also heard the coldness in his mother's words. He secretly thought that it was a good thing that he went to the Imperial Medical Department first. Otherwise, if he came back covered in blood, wouldn't his mother turn the sky upside down? He quickly went over to help Han Yushi up and said to his mother, "Mother, you can't blame Yushi for this. Those bandits kidnapped her mainly to get the formula for our family's new wine from her. In fact, it's still my fault. If I didn't ask Yushi to help me brew wine, she wouldn't have gone through this disaster now." On the way back, Han Yushi told Li Zishuan everything that had happened during the time when she was captured. When Madame Li heard Li Zishuan's words that were obviously protective of Han Yushi, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at her son. She thought to herself that her son had forgotten his mother when he had a wife. She couldn't help but say unhappily, "Mother didn't blame Yushi. Why are you in such a hurry to jump out and say this?" Actually, she just had a knot in her heart. She didn't really have a problem with Han Yushi. Li Jingma saw that the atmosphere was awkward, so he quickly coughed dryly and said, "Cough cough, Xian or Yushi, you haven't eaten yet, right? Don't stand here. Go in, madam, go in too. Cough cough." Lan also chimed in, "That's right, mother. Hurry up and eat. Lan didn't even eat lunch. She's hungry and thin." Madame Li couldn't help but laugh. She poked Lan-er's forehead with her finger and said angrily, "You little girl, you only know how to eat." Chapter 145. Yunshi Building, Private Room. Bang! "You dog, Han Yushi is Qin Qiong's adopted daughter. Why didn't you investigate clearly? Now, not only did you not get the formula, but you also made enemies on all sides. This time, I'm in big trouble because of you." The second young master of the Wang family was no longer as calm and composed as before. At this moment, his eyes were spitting fire and he was like a mad demon. Although the great expert Xiao Ying's head was broken, he still did not dare to make any movements. He could only let the blood roll down from his forehead and down his cheeks. In fact, he felt wronged in his heart. Han Yushi had just become Qin Qiong's adopted father. How would he know? "Young master," Xiao Ying wanted to explain, but the young master waved his hand and said with a dispirited face, "It's over, it's all over. This time, we have offended almost half of the forces of the imperial court and the military. It seems that this young master will directly lose the qualification for this family trial." Azure Dragon Lane. "Young master, this is what happened. The Yulin Guards, the Eastern Palace Guards, Duke Lu, Duke Yi, Duke Wu, and General Niu all came together. In the end, of the 1,128 bandits of the Bloody Wind Stockade, except for the 82 who were killed by Li Zishuan, the rest were captured by the Yulin Guards. Li Zishuan was slightly injured, and Han Yushi was safe and sound. In an exquisite room, Leng Yuyao was reporting to Wang Renbiao in detail what happened during the day in the Bloody Wind Stockade. Wang Renbiao gasped after listening. First, he was shocked by the relationship between Li Zishuan and the military leaders in the imperial court. Second, he was shocked by Li Zishuan's shocking fighting strength. Alas, in order to defeat me, my second brother actually came up with such a stupid idea. I'm afraid he can't stay in Chang'an anymore. I'll write a letter and tell my father everything. As for my second brother's punishment, I'll let the family make the decision. But this time, it's all thanks to you. If you hadn't told Li Zishuan Han Yushi's location, I'm afraid that Han Yushi would have already met with misfortune. If that happened, it wouldn't be easy to deal with this matter. Our Wang family would also have offended too many powers because of this. Although the Wang clan was one of the 5 clans and 7 watch clans and had a deep foundation, if they were to directly go against these high-ranking military bigwigs, the Wang clan would not be able to withstand it. At this time, the 5 families did not have an absolute advantage in the imperial court. The first reason was that the Guanlong military group was still very powerful at that time. The second reason was that the emperor wanted to suppress it. The third reason was that the imperial examination system was vigorously implemented, which led to the appearance of many concubine court officials. Their only advantage at this time was the public opinion of the world and their unparalleled right to speak as a landowning household. Leng Yuyao shook her head and continued, the Jianghu expert second young master recruited, Flying Snake, was also killed by Li Zishuan with a single sword strike. Li Zishuan's combat strength is infinitely close to the Grandmaster level. If young master wants to be his enemy in the future, you must be careful. Xiao Ying heard the news before the imperial court's army arrived and fled in advance. Wang Renbiao said in surprise, Li Zishuan is actually that formidable? This young master really did not expect it. But Yao why do you always think that I will become enemies with Li Zishuan? I am currently working with him, so you shouldn't always look at things based on your personal grudges. Leng Yuyao was still expressionless. She said coldly, Young master, Yuyao is not saying this because she hates Li Zishuan. Yuyao is just relying on her intuition that young master and Li Zishuan will become enemies in the end. Wang Renbiao asked curiously, Oh? Why is that? Leng Yuyao replied, Because young master and Li Zishuan are both equally outstanding people. Wang Renbiao. After a while, Leng Yuyao broke the silence. Young master, Li Junxian personally led a group of 100 cavalry out of the city today. Yuyao guesses that it is very likely to be to investigate second young master's kidnapping of Han Yushi. Wang Renbiao's expression became unprecedentedly grave. He stood up and said, It seems like second brother, the mastermind behind the scenes, will be exposed soon. This won't do. If I want to save second brother's life, I'm afraid that I'll have to have my father personally make a trip to Chang'an. Yao grind the ink. I'll write a letter right now. Leng Yuyao frowned unwillingly. Second young master was against young master before. Why are you still helping him now? Wang Renbiao scratched Leng Yuyao's nose in amusement and sighed. Although he doesn't treat me as an older brother, I have always treated him as a younger brother. Leng Yuyao's face turned slightly red. She still said unhappily, Young master is so magnanimous, but second young master will definitely not remember your kindness. Wang Renbiao smiled and shook his head, not replying. Taiji Palace. It was still brightly lit. Paying respects to your majesty. Li Junxian bowed. Li Er nodded and asked, Junxian, have you found out who ordered these bandits? Replying to your majesty, According to this general's investigation, the person who contacted the bandit leader Song Tiandao is called Xiaoying, the shopkeeper of Yunxi Pavilion. He intended to kidnap Han Yushi to obtain the recipe for immortal intoxication and gentle softness. The owner of immortal intoxication is Wang Rini, the bastard son of Sui Province's governor Wang Yu. His birth mother is Cui Qinfang of the Cui family of Qinghe. When Wang Yu married Princess Tang, Li Yuan was only a duke and had not yet started a rebellion. At that time, Princess Tang was still not a princess. Thus, it was not against the law for Wang Yu to take a concubine. After hearing Li Juanxian's report, Li Er frowned deeply. He said unhappily, "Under the feet of the Son of Heaven, this Wang Rini actually dared to collude with bandits and kidnap Shu Bao's adopted daughter. He is truly audacious. Moreover, immortal intoxication and gentle softness have already become the imperial wine of the palace. Wang Rini dared to dream of getting his hands on them? I would like to issue an edict to ask Wang Yu how he disciplined him. If Wang Rini was here, he would definitely cry out that he had been wronged. Firstly, he did not know that Han Yushi was Qin Xiong's adopted daughter. Secondly, he did not know that immortal intoxication and gentle softness were the imperial wine of the palace. If he had known either of these points, he would definitely not have done so. This was completely a disaster caused by the lack of information. Tonight, Chang'an City was not peaceful. Those who were observant would be able to find out what had happened during the day. Thus, those who had hedonistic sons were all taught not to offend the girl called Han Yushi. Of course, they could not offend Li Zixuan either. The military forces supporting them were simply too powerful. Yongla Lane, Li Mansion. This place was filled with laughter. Li Zixuan did not even have time to eat lunch. Later on, he had used up so much energy that he was so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back. Now that he saw a table full of delicious food, how could he endure it? Not long later, he was full to the point of groaning. Just as he was about to go outside for some fresh air and digestion, he heard Li Jingma say, "Xian sleep early tonight. You still have to attend the morning court tomorrow." Li Zixuan opened his eyes wide in disbelief. "Father, why do I have to attend the morning court?" If he attended the morning court, he would not be able to sleep in. He did not want to attend the morning court. Li Jingma said angrily, "His Majesty sent someone to pass on a message this afternoon. He wants you to attend the morning court tomorrow. You have to go this time. You disobeyed the edict today. Later on, you will have to write a memorial to ask for forgiveness. Go and ask for forgiveness tomorrow." Li Zixuan was dumbfounded. Chapter 146. Li Residence, Study. "Xian why are you looking for me? Why are you being so secretive?" After dinner, Li Zixuan quickly invited his mother to the study, while everyone else went back to their rooms to rest. Li Zixuan smiled as he poured a cup of tea and handed it to Mrs. Li. "Mother, have some tea." Mrs. Li looked at her son suspiciously but still took the teacup. She took a sip and asked, "Xian why are you looking for me? Tell me." Li Zixuan laughed dryly. Hee mother, look at what you're saying. Can't I chat with you if I have nothing to do?" Mrs. Li rolled her eyes and said in disbelief, "Tsk, do you think I don't know you? You've been back for so long, and when have you ever chatted with me? If you have something to say it quickly." Li Zixuan was embarrassed. No one knew him better than his mother. He said awkwardly, Mother, what do you think of Yushi?" Mrs. Li replied in confusion, "She's okay. What's wrong?" Li Zixuan scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "Mother, I want to." Mrs. Li saw her son's shy and stuttering look. She thought for a moment and immediately understood. She couldn't help but find it funny. She had just told her husband about this a few days ago. She had already been looking for a matchmaker to arrange this matter. She didn't expect her son to be so impatient. Mrs. Li deliberately teased. Xian wants to get married? Although Li Zixuan was a little embarrassed, if he didn't step forward to arrange this matter, was he going to wait for Han Yushi to bring it up? Li Zixuan couldn't do such an irresponsible thing. Mother, I want to marry Yushi. What do you think? Mrs. Li was relieved. This blockhead of a son was finally enlightened. You. Mother has already arranged this matter for you. In a few days, a matchmaker will go to Han Tianhu's house to propose marriage. Mrs. Li smiled. Li Zixuan opened his mouth in surprise. Mother, how did you know? Mrs. Li said unhappily, Mother carried you for 10 months and gave birth to you. How could Mother not know what you're thinking? You just have to stay at home and wait for your bride to come in. Li Zixuan was also very happy that his mother was so considerate. He smiled and said, Thank you, Mother. Thinking that her son was about to have a family and start a career, Mrs. Li was truly happy. She got up and said with a smile, Well, look at how proud you are. Go back and rest. You still have to go to the morning court tomorrow. After Madame Li finished speaking, she went out with a smile. The next day, after the bell and drum of Chang'an City had been struck 4 times, the lights in the Li mansion began to be lit one by one. The maids and servants were busy lighting the fire and boiling water, preparing to wash their masters and make breakfast. The groom washed the horse clean. Li Jingma and Madame Li hurried back and forth, not daring to be careless in the slightest. Today was their son's first official appearance in court. Last time, Li Zixuan had been summoned by Li Er to denounce him for his crimes, not to have an official appearance. Li Zixuan was still asleep when he was pulled up. Mrs. Li gave Xiao He a strict order. The little girl ignored Li Zixuan's muddle-headed complaints and wiped his face and brushed his teeth. The bitterness of the willow branches didn't drive away Li Zixuan's sleepiness. He put on the official uniform and the golden crown. He was underage, so he couldn't wear the official hat. He changed into thin deerskin boots and fastened the ceremonial sword to his belt. He came to the front hall and ate a big bowl of porridge hastily. He felt a little less sleepy, so he checked his equipment again. Under the gaze of the whole family, he got on the horse and went out. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was not yet time to open the doors. The entire market was quiet, and a cold crescent moon was hanging in the sky. Shouldn't they be lying on their beds and sleeping comfortably at this time? Li Zixuan couldn't help but criticize the inhumane morning court again. After a long time, the gate was finally opened. Li Zixuan got on the horse and went out of Yongla Lane to Vermilion Bird Avenue. He saw soldiers patrolling the streets, but no other officials passed by. After checking his identity, the soldiers of the warden's office saluted in unison, leaving 2 carrying huge lanterns to lead the way. Taiji Palace was in the north of the city. It was built against the mountain, facing the south with its back to the north. This was the privilege of the imperial family. Of course, it wasn't a big deal for ordinary people to live in the north. Li Er didn't have to care about this. He arrived at the imperial city. From a distance, he saw the brightly lit gate and a crowd of people. They cupped their hands in greeting and chatted amiably. But whether they were smiling sincerely or hiding a knife in their smile, he couldn't tell. Li Zixuan saw the civil and military officials were divided into 2 groups, clearly separated. He was in a dilemma. He didn't know whether he was a civil official or a military general. Qing Yaojin came over to solve the problem. He patted Li Zixuan's shoulder vigorously and said in a rough voice, "You brat, why aren't you coming with me? What are you waiting for? Don't tell me you want to join that group of scholars?" Qing Yaojin ignored the angry glares of Fang Xianling, Zhang Sun Wuji and the other civil officials. He slowly pulled Li Zixuan into the military general group. Li Zixuan argued fiercely in the imperial court last time. He fought with Yuan Wendao and Wei Jing, and was finally conferred the title of Baron Lantian. All the military generals knew him. Besides, after the big commotion in Chang'an yesterday, Everyone had a direct understanding of Li Zixuan's connections in the military. They knew that this young man shouldn't be offended. So they all nodded kindly to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan was just a loser in his previous life. He had never been an official and wasn't good at socializing. But he adhered to the principle that people shouldn't be offended by too much courtesy. He bowed respectfully to all the big shot. After one round, his face muscles were stiff from smiling and his neck was sore from nodding. Then he returned to Qing Yaojin, Qin Xiong and the others. Li Zixuan went to Qin Xiong and whispered, "Uncle Qin, I didn't answer the summons yesterday. Will His Majesty punish me today?" He heard that Han Yushi was in trouble yesterday and his heart was in a mess. He didn't have time to care about Li Er's summons. Later, when he returned home, he felt a lingering fear. In his previous life, he had seen many historical dramas. In them, it was said that disobeying an imperial decree was a serious crime. So he was very uneasy now. Qin Xiong stroked his beard and smiled. "It should be fine. Yesterday, His Majesty heard that you disobeyed an imperial decree and was indeed very angry. But later, His Highness the Crown Prince and I mediated between them. His Majesty then calmed down. Today, he shouldn't punish you too much. In fact, disobeying an imperial decree depended on the situation. There was no such thing as disobeying an imperial decree in the laws of previous dynasties. This was a general term for such crimes. 9 familial exterminations wouldn't be used easily. Even the most violent monarchs would use it carefully. If disobeying an imperial decree was disobeying an imperial decree, then there wouldn't be an immortal poet who said that he was a wine immortal. After hearing Qin Xiong's words, Li Zixuan heaved a huge sigh of relief in his heart. He secretly praised Li Chengqian, this brother, and Qin Xiong, this elder, for being too reliable. He bowed deeply to Qin Xiong and thanked him. "Many thanks, Uncle Qin." Qin Xiong waved his hand and didn't care. At this time, a servant came forward and shouted, "Go to court!" The officials immediately quieted down and lowered their heads. They carried the imperial decree and slowly entered Taiji Palace. Chapter 147. Following the crowd, Li Zixuan entered the Taiji Palace. It was his first time attending the court, so he didn't know where he should stand. Adhering to the principle of not standing out, he quietly hid at the back of the army, where there was a big pillar. After the officials greeted Li Er, the deacon eunuch announced, "If there's something to report, the court is dismissed." The morning court officially began. The first one to stand out was Fang Xianling. Old Fang spoke a lot of words. Li Zixuan listened for a long time before he understood the general idea. The general idea was that the people of Jinzhou, Bazhou, Chenzhou, Luozhou, and other provinces far away from Chang'an had heard that a better plough had appeared near Chang'an. They had gathered at the local government office to petition for the court to give some of the curved ploughs to them. Li Er waved his hand and ordered the Ministry of Works to increase production and promote the curved ploughs to the whole country. Li Zixuan listened for a while and felt a little sleepy. He had woken up too early in the morning. He secretly glanced around and saw that no one was paying attention to him, so he leaned against the red pillar behind him and took a nap. At the same time, he couldn't help but feel lucky that he had chosen a good position. This feeling was just like when he was in university. He always sat at the back, and the teacher didn't notice him. It had to be said that Li Zixuan's action was quite confusing. He leaned against the pillar, hugged the table, arched his back, and closed his eyes to sleep. From afar, he looked no different from the other officials. After a while, he fell asleep. Li Zixuan had a strange dream. He dreamed that he was back in university, back in the classroom. On the podium was the beautiful advanced mathematics teacher who had taught him before. She was talking about the Taylor series, which troubled Li Zixuan the most. Strangely, his girlfriend was sitting next to him. After all, his girlfriend and he were not in the same school. In the dream, Li Zixuan didn't raise any questions about this. He held his girlfriend's hand and leaned over the table to chat with her in a low voice. As they chatted, they even started to play kissing in class. Li Zixuan, get up and expand this function into a Taylor series. The teacher slammed the table and yelled at Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan quivered and was immediately startled awake. Lordly, lordly, His Majesty is calling for you. Quickly wake up and let go of my hand. When Li Zixuan opened his eyes, he saw a military official with a face full of pimples and wearing a green robe beside him. The military official was calling him to wake up in a low voice, and at the same time seemed to be pulling his hand. Li Zixuan was shocked. He lowered his head and saw that the hand of his girlfriend in his dream was actually this person's dog paw. No wonder it felt wrong. He felt a chill in his heart and hurriedly threw away the military official's hand. With a face full of fear, he took 2 steps back. At this moment, Li Er's slightly angry voice came from above. Lan Tianju? I asked you a question, why aren't you answering? All the officials in the hall looked over. Li Zixuan knew that things were not good. Old Li was going to mess with him. Li Zixuan walked forward while thinking of a countermeasure. After a while, he came to the front of the officials and bowed to Li Er. Your Majesty, when I was listening to Your Majesty's teachings, I felt as if I was bathing in the holy light. In my mind, I couldn't help but think of the red sun rising, its great light, the magnificent scene of the river flowing out of the water. Your Majesty's words were like pearls, and every sentence contained the truth of heaven and earth. I was meditating and was a little distracted, so I didn't hear what Your Majesty said. I am guilty, Your Majesty, please punish me. Qing Yaojin widened his eyes and looked at Li Zixuan as if he was looking at a monster. He thought to himself, good boy, your skin is so thick. It's almost as thick as mine. Qin Xiong turned his face away and pretended not to know this shameless junior. Li Qingqian, who was standing below Li Er, didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at his good brother. This was the first time he saw Li Zixuan being so shameless. Some of the civil officials were shocked, but most of them were indignant. Scholars valued integrity. As a baron of the great Tang, Li Zixuan actually flattered Li Er in such a blatant manner to cover up his crime. This was too shameless. He could be called a treacherous traitor. Li Er's face darkened. He had clearly seen the little movements of Li Zixuan and that military official from his seat above. He had not expected that Li Zixuan would come up with such blatant lies, his mouth full of nonsense. Moreover, he could make the matter of sleeping in court sound so fresh, refined, and reasonable. In the entire Great Tang, perhaps only this brat could do such a thing? Shut up! Li Er angrily slapped the dragon table and pointed at Li Zixuan. He was burning with anger, but he didn't know how to reprimand Li Zixuan. Li Er took a few deep breaths and calmed himself down. Then he said again, I just said, Lord Lantian, you disobeyed the imperial decree yesterday. What should be your punishment? Qin Xiong had already told him about this matter. Li Zixuan already had an idea in his heart. Li Er was probably trying to scare him. Li Zixuan pretended to be terrified and bowed down. Your Majesty, I am young and inexperienced. I didn't know the severity of the matter and was confused for a moment. I made a big mistake. Your Majesty, please punish me. All right, I'm only 14 years old. I'm young and don't know any better. You are the Emperor, you can't be so calculative with a kid, right? Moreover, as to why I disobeyed the imperial decree, I'm sure you know the reason better than anyone. Li Zixuan thought to himself. This was the advantage of being young. Li Er choked on Li Zixuan's words. It was rare for someone to be conferred a title at the age of 14. After experiencing so many things, Li Er had almost forgotten Li Zixuan's true age. The matter of disobeying the imperial decree, there is a reason for it. I can temporarily not pursue it. Li Zixuan quickly thanked him, Thank you, Your Majesty, for your kindness. Li Er said in annoyance. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. I haven't finished speaking. A few days ago, I heard that you made immortal drunken wine and gentle village, as well as red braised meat, red braised lion's head, and other dishes. When Li Er said this, some of the officials in the hall couldn't help but swallow their saliva. It was obvious that these people had eaten the new dishes and drunk the new wine of the drunken immortal restaurant. When Li Er mentioned this, although his mouth was a little greedy, he still continued to speak with a serious face. As a baron of a country, you don't do proper work. Instead, you spend all your time studying, eating, and drinking. What a scandal! A few days ago, the Imperial College's mathematics doctor, Lu Qingshan, retired. I originally planned to let Su Hongji teach on his behalf, but Mr. Su wrote a letter saying that your mathematics ability was above his and recommended you to teach. After much consideration, I have decided to appoint you as the Imperial College's mathematics doctor. You will take up the post tomorrow. Li Zishuan was immediately dumbfounded. Letting him teach a group of hedonistic brats, wasn't this a scam? How could this be more comfortable than being an otaku at home and hugging his goddess? Old Li couldn't bear to see him idle. Your Majesty, this official's talent is shallow. I'm afraid I can't take on this heavy responsibility. Li Zishuan weakly protested. Li Er waved his sleeves and said decisively, Stop talking nonsense. If I tell you to go, then go. Do you still want to disobey the imperial decree? After he finished speaking, he stared at Li Zishuan with a murderous gaze. Li Zishuan felt Li Er's deep malice and full of threat. He secretly scolded Li Er for not talking about human rights and democracy and for forcing women into prostitution. This official obeys the imperial decree. All right, the arm can't win against the thigh. Li Zishuan could only admit defeat. Only then did Li Er nod his head in satisfaction. He looked at the group of civil officials and said, Chancellor Kong, from now on, Li Zishuan will be supervised by you at the Imperial College. If this person is lazy, late, or leaves early, inform me. I will deal with him. An elegant white-haired old man walked out and bowed. This old official obeys the imperial decree. Li Zishuan secretly wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Not only did old Li give him work, he even sent an old man to be his supervisor. The imperial court schemes are deep. I have to go back to the countryside. I can't live like this anymore. Chapter 148. Imperial Palace, Taiji Palace. Li Zishuan, who felt that there was no more joy in life, wanted to return to his original position but was interrupted by a cold snort from Li Er. He obediently walked to the position that Li Er pointed to, which was the 6th row of the civil officials. In front of him stood Chancellor Kong, who had previously stepped forward to answer. Li Zishuan guessed that this Chancellor Kong should be Kong Ingda. This little old man was quite famous in the Tang Dynasty. Li Zishuan had heard of him in the future. The morning court session was still going on. Li Zishuan stood there listlessly with his head drooped as he listened to the various big shots tear each other apart. Although the battle was intense, he was not interested in it at all. This kind of scheming imperial court really did not suit him. There was no table in front of him to lie down on and no pillar behind him to lean on. Standing in this awkward position, Li Zishuan could not fall asleep even if he wanted to. After waiting in a daze for nearly 2 hours, the morning court session finally ended. Li Zishuan could not help but want to look up to the sky and howl. It finally ended. After moving his sore thighs and rubbing his hungry stomach, Li Zishuan followed the civil and military officials out of the main hall and prepared to go home to eat. He saw that the person walking in front of him was Kong Ingda. He thought that in the future, he would be going to the Imperial College to teach. This old man was equivalent to the principal of the Imperial College. In order to ensure that he would not be bullied in the future, He had to pay his respects and build a good relationship with the leader. Chancellor Kong, please wait. When Kong Ingda heard someone calling him, he slowed down his footstep. Li Zixuan quickly walked forward and cupped his hands. This little one greets Mr. Kong. Mr. Kong has abandoned the regional prejudice of the southern and northern schools. Mr. Kong is a famous scholar of the present age. This little one has admired Mr. Kong for a long time. This little one feels extremely honored to be able to work under Mr. Kong in the future. As the saying goes, flattery never fails. Li Zixuan came up and started to flatter Kong Ingda. However, Kong Ingda had experienced the vicissitudes of life and was indifferent to fame and fortune. Li Zixuan's flattery had no effect on him. He looked at Li Zixuan with his wise eyes and said with a smile that was not a smile. If this old man remembers correctly, Lan Tianjue should belong to the Taoist lineage, right? Why would he admire our Confucian culture? Li Zixuan almost choked to death in an instant. He secretly thought that this old man was not an easy character to get along with. He laughed dryly and said, "Master, I'm afraid that you are mistaken. So what if it's Confucianism or Taoism?" Back then, Kong Shi eliminated the views of the Confucian school of scripture and the Taoist school of thought and selected the best school of thought from the various schools of thought. Thus, he brought an end to the various disputes that had existed since the Western Han Dynasty. Later on, he abandoned the prejudice of the northern and southern schools of thought and embraced the various schools of thought. He merged the northern and southern schools of thought together and preserved the results of the Western Han Dynasty. This way, the teachings of the predecessors would not disappear and the scholars of the future generations would be able to look up to him. Since Kong Shi was able to embrace different schools of thought within the Confucian school, why couldn't he jump out of the Confucian school and look at the other schools of thought with a tolerant attitude? Since ancient times, the existence of the two schools of thought is reasonable. Confucianism and Taoism have existed for thousands of years, and there are many similarities between the two schools of thought. Why can't they learn from each other's strengths and make up for their weaknesses? Li Zixuan was just speaking casually. However, as he spoke, he couldn't help but reveal some of his understanding of Confucianism and Taoism from the depths of his mind. In the memories that he inherited, he had an extremely deep impression of the Taoist school of thought. Kong Ingda had previously seen Li Zixuan flatteringly Erda without a shred of integrity in the imperial court, so he had some contempt for Li Zixuan. Hearing Li Zixuan's words now, he couldn't help but praise in his heart that this kid really had some real talent. He couldn't help but clap his hands and laugh. What a good existence is reasonable, what a good learn from each other's strengths to make up for their weaknesses. Your understanding of the Confucian and Taoist schools of thought is truly insightful. Not bad, not bad. Child, since you have such talent, why did you try to flatter the emperor in the royal court? How can a scholar not have strength of character? Seeing that Li Zixuan was a talent that could be molded, Kong Ingda couldn't help but offer a few more words of advice, hoping that Li Zixuan would realize his mistake and mend his ways. Li Zixuan sweated inwardly. It turned out that his performance in the royal court had left these civil officials with a bad impression of flattery. He couldn't help but curse these civil officials. They could have strength of character, admonishing the emperor, and leaving their name for generations to come. However, he didn't want these empty titles. He only wanted to hug his wife and live happily for the rest of his life. What did the strength of a scholar have to do with him? Master Kong, this child has just entered the royal court and isn't clear about the matters of the royal court. Today, when I was reprimanded by His Majesty, this child recalled the time when I was young and was scolded by my master for doing something wrong. This is why this child spoke without thinking. Master Kong, please don't take offense. Li Zixuan racked his brains and came up with an excuse that wasn't an excuse. Right now, I'm still a child. You big shots have the nerve to talk to me about the strength of a scholar? What kind of person was Kong Ingda? He immediately understood the meaning behind Li Zixuan's words. Only now did he remember Li Zixuan's age, and couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He stroked his beard to alleviate the awkwardness. Cough, this old man naturally won't blame you. I just hope that when you take up a post in the Imperial College in the future, you will do your best to educate people. This old man believes that a person who can create a curved plow and bring prosperity to the people naturally has an excellent character. He finally managed to settle this new superior. It wasn't easy at all. Li Zixuan secretly let out a sigh of relief. He clasped his hands and said, "This child will remember Master Kong's teachings." Kong Ingda smiled and waved his hand, saying, "All right then. This old man will wait for Lan Tianju to take up his post at the Imperial College tomorrow." The two of them chatted for a while before parting ways. Li Zixuan wanted to chase after Qin Xiong and the others. Han Yushi was going to visit Madame Qin in the morning, so he could bring Han Yushi home while he was at it. Ever since he and Han Yushi revealed their feelings for each other, Li Zixuan always wanted to be by Han Yushi's side. Even if he didn't do anything, just looking at Han Yushi's beautiful face and feeling Han Yushi's gentle personality was also very good. However, Li Zixuan didn't allow him to be idle and always caused trouble for him. Thinking about how he was going to work at the Imperial College tomorrow, Li Zixuan couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. Just as he was about to leave the gate of Heaven Influence, he heard someone shout from behind, "Sir Li, please wait. His Majesty has something to say." Li Zixuan's face darkened. This was too much. This was too much. What was old Li trying to do? Could he still let him go home to eat? Li Zixuan silently drew countless small circles in his heart, cursing Li Zixuan for not being able to get it up at night. Then, he calmed himself down and turned around. When the servant ran over, Li Zixuan's expression had returned to normal. He asked, "May I ask why His Majesty is looking for me?" The servant took a few deep breaths and said, "Sir, I don't know. Please move, His Majesty is waiting." All right. Damned feudalism. Evil imperial power is supreme. Then let's go. Chapter 149. Greetings, Your Majesty. Li Zixuan followed the eunuch to the inner hall behind Taiji Palace. He saw Li Er eating and drinking at a few tables above. Li Zixuan couldn't help but curse inwardly. "If you want to eat, just eat. Why did you call me over? Do you want me to watch you eat?" Li Er swallowed the food in his mouth and nodded at Li Zixuan. "No need for formalities. I asked you to come because I want to show you something. You will definitely be very interested in it." With that, he asked the eunuch beside him to deliver a booklet to Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan received it with both hands and curiously flipped it open. He saw rows of densely packed words without even punctuation mark. Li Zixuan forced himself to endure the discomfort and read on word by word. After reading half of it, Li Zixuan finally understood that what was written on it was actually the investigation report of the kidnapping of Han Yushi yesterday. Li Er was right. Li Zixuan was really interested in this. Yesterday's matter wasn't over yet. The mastermind behind the bandits still hadn't been caught. He perked up and finished reading the entire booklet. Then, he returned the booklet to the eunuch. He was extremely shocked. Yunshi Restaurant hired bandits to kidnap Han Yushi in order to obtain the new wine formula. This was within Li Zixuan's expectations. It was just a matter of interest. What he really didn't expect was that Yunshi Restaurant's owner was Wang Renyi from the Wang family of Taiyuan. Although the booklet didn't mention the relationship between Wang Renyi and Wang Renbiao, Li Zixuan could roughly guess it. The last time Wang Renbiao came to seek cooperation, he said that the reason he came out to do business was because of a trial for his family's disciples. Then, the relationship between Wang Renyi and Wang Renbiao was obvious. Even if they weren't brothers, they were probably close family members. Li Zixuan's expression was uncertain. He had a good impression of Wang Renbiao before, which was why he cooperated with him. However, he didn't know what role Wang Renbiao played in this matter. Are you done reading? Is there anything you want to say? Li Zixuan wiped his mouth and asked casually as he looked at Li Zixuan's changing expression. Li Zixuan bowed and said, Your Majesty, I would like to know how Your Majesty intends to deal with these bandits and the person behind them. Li Er said indifferently, Han Yushi is Shu Bao's adopted daughter. These lawbreakers should be severely punished. The bandits of the Bloodwind Stockade gathered in the mountains and committed many illegal acts. The bandit leader should be beheaded in public. As for the other accomplices, they should be exiled or dismissed. I have already ordered the Supreme Court to arrest the shopkeeper of the Yunxi restaurant. As for Wang Ren, how do you want me to deal with him? Li Zixuan thought for a moment, then spat out a word with a cold expression, Kill? Anyone who dared to touch his woman, no matter who it was, would have to pay the price. Even though the Wang family was a 1,000-year-old clan, he could easily get a few carts of gunpowder and raze the entire Wang family to the ground. Moreover, Wang Ren was only one person. He could not represent the entire Wang family. Li Er raised his eyebrows and said angrily, You are really a newborn calf that is not afraid of tigers. The Wang family is a rich and powerful clan. Wang Ren's birth mother is from the Chui family in Qinghe. If I kill Wang Ren because of this, won't the Wang family and the Chui family fall out with me? Won't all the noble families in the world be in danger because of this? Li Zixuan was not convinced and said, Your Majesty, you are the ruler of a country. Our Tang Empire has many fierce generals. How can we be afraid of these aristocratic families? Li Er stared and said, How dare you? The affairs of aristocratic families are not as simple as you think. How much do you know? Don't use these words to provoke me. Wang Ren's birth father, Wang Yu, married my imperial aunt. I must give him some face. Wang Ren cannot be killed. At most, I will make sure he never appears in Chang'an. Wang Yu will come to Chang'an soon. He will talk to you about this. Li Zixuan did not give up and said, Your Majesty, you really can't kill him? Li Er angrily threw a book on the table at Li Zixuan. However, Li Zixuan cleverly dodged it. Li Er said angrily, Why is your killing intent stronger than mine? You are from the Taoist school. But then again, Han Yushi did not suffer any harm in this matter. She is not anxious. Why are you so anxious? Li Zixuan said, Your Majesty, Han Yushi is already my fiancé. Of course I am anxious. I see. No wonder you are jumping around like someone stepped on your tail. Alright, let's end this matter here. Don't think about killing people in private to vent your anger. Unless you don't want to be a baron anymore and want to take your family and flee for the rest of your life. Li Er made the final decision and drew an imperfect end to this matter. Li Zixuan was helpless. He really wanted to wait for Wang Ren to leave Chang and to kill him. He did not expect to be blocked by Li Er's last sentence, which was slightly threatening. Your Majesty, if Wang Ren threatens my family again in the future, even if Your Majesty does not kill him, I will definitely do it. Even if the Wang family and the Chui family join forces to seek revenge, I am willing to bear it alone. At most, I will perish together with tens of thousands of people from the two families. I definitely have the ability to do so. Since he could not kill him this time, he had to be prepared. If Wang Ren did not give up and continued to court death, then he, Li Zixuan, would not be polite. Li Er narrowed his eyes and said with a smile that was not a smile, Hey, you brat, talk big. But don't worry, after Wang Ren returns to the Wang family, he definitely won't have the ability to stand out again, let alone have the ability to deal with you. Oh, by the way, I have seen the trial of the Supreme Judiciary and found that the bandits of Xiefeng Stockade Village also did a case 2 months ago. You were there at that time, right? It is said that you were sneakily attacked and fell off the cliff? Lier paused for a moment and then continued. But his eyes were full of gossip and ridicule. Li Zishuan was speechless. Lier was so shameless and always exposed people's shortcomings. Your Majesty, it was my first time to go down the mountain, and I did not know how sinister people were. I was careless and was killed by a villain. Lier laughed and said, I did not expect that an immortal like you would almost be killed by a group of bandits, haha. Your Majesty, what happened to the girl in the end? Was she taken away by the bandits? Li Zishuan's heart stirred as he changed the topic. No. Later, the soldiers arrived and the bandits fled. The soldiers took advantage of the chaos and caught the second and third leaders of Xiefeng Stockade Village. Why? You saved the beauty. Did you take a fancy to her? Lier asked with a smile. Lier is so shameless. Li Zishuan quickly shook his head and said, Your Majesty, what are you talking about? When I see injustice on the road, I draw my sword to help. I did not even see the girl from the beginning to the end. How could I like her? Lier was surprised and said, Haha, I did not expect you to be so chivalrous. A few days ago, I heard that you gave Shu Bao 2 bottles of medicinal wine. I saw that Shu Bao's complexion had greatly improved these 2 days. You did a good job. Li Zishuan hurriedly said, Uncle Qin treats me like a nephew. This is what I should do. Lier nodded with relief and said, Okay, then you can leave. Li Zishuan suddenly thought of something and asked, Well, Your Majesty, I want to ask if the doctor of the Imperial College needs to attend the morning court? Lier thought that this kid was good, but now he almost spat out blood when he heard this. He really wanted to take him out and chop him up to feed the dogs. Lier impatiently waved his hand and said, No, get out. The doctor of the Imperial College belonged to the lower 5th rank. Only officials of the 5th rank and above were qualified to attend the morning court every day. Li Zishuan happened to be at the threshold. Hearing that he did not need to attend the morning court in the future, Li Zishuan did not mind Lier's bad tone at all. He smiled and bowed to Lier and said, I will leave. Then, he retreated out of the room. Lier looked at Li Zishuan's back. After a long time, he suddenly felt funny and shook his head and murmured, This kid, I have nothing to do. Why should I bother with him? Chapter 150. In the back hall of Taiji Palace, Lier supported his chin with his hand and was thinking about what Li Zishuan had said. The foundation of the 5 surnames and 7 hopes was too huge, and they had a high reputation everywhere. It was easier said than done to weaken the aristocratic families. The eunuch in the hall picked up the memorial that Lier had used to hit Li Zishuan and carefully placed it beside Lier's hand. Then, he quietly retreated to the side. Lier's eyes inadvertently swept over and realized that the memorial was the secret memorial that Qin Xiong had presented to him yesterday. It was over. He was so angry that he forgot about the important matter. Men, quickly summon Li Zishuan back. Lier hurriedly ordered. Yes. Although the eunuch was puzzled, he did not dare to ask. He quickly retreated and chased after Li Zishuan. Waves, waves, waves. I don't need to go to court and don't wake up early. I'll sleep until daybreak tomorrow. Li Zishuan happily walked on the palace road. Although he was unable to kill the mastermind behind the scenes, Lier had promised him that Wang Rini would not come to provoke him in the future. More importantly, he would no longer have to attend this damned morning court. Guessing that Han Yushi should have come out of Qin Manor by now, Li Zishuan planned to go home and eat. He only had a bowl of porridge in the morning and did not even eat a steamed bun. Now, he was so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back. He almost forgot that the steamed buns of the Tang Dynasty were too disgusting. They were sour and had a strange taste. He once vomited after eating a mouthful. Lordly, wait, His Majesty summoned you back. It was the same voice, the same place. Li Zishuan really wanted to jump into the pond and drown. Greetings, Your Majesty. Li Zishuan bowed weakly. You dare not to come back when Old Li asked you to? You could say that he was a coward, but if you transmigrated, why don't you try being a coward? Don't make trouble. I just forgot something. I'll let you go after this. When Li Er saw Li Zishuan fooling around, he wanted to laugh. He shook his head and said, "This is the secret memorial that Shu Bao presented yesterday. Take a look." A servant passed the secret memorial to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan took it and flipped it open. It was a prophecy about the locust plague. It seemed that Qin Xiong could not wait any longer. Li Zishuan skimmed through it and was stunned when he saw the last few lines. This old subject believes that the prophecy of the plague of locusts is 80% true. I hope that your majesty will make early preparations to prevent the plague of locusts from coming. Every time this old official thought about this, I couldn't bear it and boldly wrote a letter to inform His Majesty. If the plague of locusts does not arrive next year, I am willing to relinquish my title of Duke and hand over all of my family's assets to the national treasury to make up for the losses suffered by the imperial court. Li Zishuan was deeply touched. At the time, he had agreed with Qin Xiong to write a joint letter and share the responsibility if something happened. However, he did not expect Qin Xiong to go back on his word and take all of the responsibility. Li Zishuan was both angry and touched. This was an old man worthy of his lifetime of respect. Is the prophecy of the plague of locusts true? Li Er saw Li Zishuan finish reading and asked in a low voice. Li Zishuan sorted out his emotions and said seriously, "Your Majesty, my master did say that in June next year there would be a plague of locusts on the Guanzhong plains. I have never doubted my master's words since I was young and am willing to vouch for it. If the plague of locusts does not arrive next year, I am willing to relinquish my title and hand over all of my family's assets to make up for my sins. However, Your Majesty, for the sake of the millions of people in the world, please believe in this prophecy and make early preparations." Since Qin Xiong had bet all of his assets on this prophecy, Li Zishuan had nothing to be afraid of. He had time-traveled to the Tang Dynasty. Although he had invented some new things, they were not enough to change the course of history, let alone the timing of a natural disaster like the plague of locusts. The plague of locusts next year would definitely arrive as scheduled. When Li Er heard this, he was slightly surprised. He did not expect Li Zishuan, a person who did not want to suffer losses, to say such words that were obviously harmful to him. This made him take this prophecy even more seriously. "Since Shu Bao and you are so sure, then I will believe in this prophecy. However, even if I know that there will be a plague of locusts next year, what can I do? Last year, the Turks emptied the Chang and local government's treasury. The imperial court will not be able to take out so much money to store food for millions of people in advance." When Li Er mentioned the Turks, he could not help but hit the table with hatred. Li Zishuan was silent. The Wei River Alliance was indeed a mark of shame on the Tang Dynasty. However, in less than 2 years, Li Er would be able to wash away the shame. He thought for a moment and said, "Your Majesty, people only store food in advance to survive the plague of locusts. Why did no one think of controlling the plague of locusts?" Li Er frowned and said, "Control? Since ancient times there have been countless plague of locusts. Why have I never heard of a way to control the plague of locusts?" Li Zishuan said embarrassedly, "Your Majesty, do you still remember the 150,000 chickens I raised in the Han village and Plum village?" Li Er widened his eyes and said in disbelief, "Do you want to use these chickens to control the plague of locusts? But when the plague of locusts comes, the locusts will be overwhelming. How can your chickens eat all the locusts?" Li Zishuan smiled and said, "Your Majesty, don't underestimate the ability of chickens to hunt locusts. I once read a book. It said that an adult chicken can eat up to 300 locusts a day. At that time, I estimate that 20 to 30 chickens can almost guarantee that there will be no locusts in 1 acre of land. Since you don't believe me, then let's use data. Anyway, I have said the same thing more than once. Li Er was also a well-read and cultured person. He frowned and said in disbelief, "Would there be a book that recorded such a boring thing? Why haven't I seen it before?" Li Zishuan choked and said awkwardly, This is the only book left behind by my master. It is long gone. But what I said is true. If your majesty doesn't believe me, you can send someone to catch a chicken and test it." Li Er nodded thoughtfully. Suddenly, he pointed at Li Zishuan's nose and scolded in a bad mood. "No wonder you bought so many chickens. Last time, you deliberately quibbled in the imperial court. You said that you bought the chickens for the farmers and for the chicken feast next year. You are deceiving the emperor. Tell me, what do you think you should be punished for?" Old Li was really unkind. He actually killed the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. Li Zishuan was speechless. He cried out in grievance, "Your Majesty, the 2 reasons I mentioned are indeed true. As for the locust plague prophecy, this is a matter of great importance. This humble subject would not dare to speak nonsense. Your Majesty, the Empress said that it is time for lunch." At this time, a delicate palace maid came in and said to Li Er. Li Er nodded. He stood up and said to Li Zishuan, "You are a slippery fellow. Later, write a detailed plan of your plan and present it to me." Li Zishuan suddenly felt tired. He said listlessly, "As you wish." Li Er was angry when he saw him like this. He resisted the urge to slap Li Zishuan on the back of his head. Li Er flicked his sleeves and said, "Okay, then you can go back first." Li Zishuan cupped his hands and left. He complained to Li Er in his heart. "He kept me here for half a day and didn't even eat. How stingy." However, it was better that he didn't stay for lunch. There were so many rules in the palace. If he made Old Li unhappy, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? Li Zishuan walked out of the palace quickly. He was afraid that Li Er would send someone to call him back again. He came to the palace gate and found his horse. Li Zishuan tidied his clothes and mounted the horse. He rushed towards Yongle Lane. In the palace, Li Er was on the way to Shi Nei court. He said to the servant beside him, "Go and summon Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Zhang Sun Wuji to the palace for a meeting in the afternoon." "Yes, Your Majesty." Chapter 151. Yongle Lane, Li Residence. "Young master, you're back." Sanbao, who was guarding the door, quickly ran over to take the reins from Li Zishuan's hands. Li Zishuan nodded and walked in. When he came to the front hall, he saw Han Yushi at first glance. She had indeed returned. Other than Han Yushi, Lana Ironegg, and his parents, Li Zishuan actually noticed that Han Lijing was also here today. "Oh, Uncle Han, you're here today." Li Zishuan greeted him warmly. Han Lijing stood up and cupped his hands to Li Zishuan. "Young master, you're back. I went to Plum Village yesterday, and heard that Yushi was kidnapped by bandits when I came back. I was very anxious, but the city gate was already closed at that time. This morning, I rushed over to inquire about the news. I didn't expect that young master had already rescued my daughter. Young master's kindness to my family is as heavy as a mountain." Li Zishuan waved his hand and smiled. "Uncle Han, you don't have to be so polite. Wasn't this nonsense? Han Yushi was not only Han Lijing's daughter, but also his own wife. Wasn't it natural for him to save his own wife?" Everyone exchanged greetings for a while before Madame Li asked the servant to serve the dishes. During the meal, Li Zishuan told the 2 elders about what happened in the morning court. Li Jingma was immediately overjoyed. This Imperial College's doctor was a glorious position. Father Li was excited. He ordered the servants to inform the kitchen to add more dishes and called Han Lijing to drink and eat. For a moment the meal was very lively. Li Zishuan was speechless. Not only did his parents not sympathize with him, but they were also excited as if they had picked up money. It was really unreasonable. After the meal, other than Li Zishuan who was eating gloomily, Everyone else ate happily and were satisfied. After dinner, Li Zixuan accompanied his parents and Han Lijing to talk for a while. Then, he went to Mingyue Xian to look for Han Yushi. Han Lijing came here today, so Han Yushi would probably go back with him in the afternoon. He had to cherish this last good time. When he arrived at Mingyue Xian, he found Han Yushi, Iron Egg, and Lan Er sitting in the pavilion in the middle of the pond, chatting and laughing. Sister Yushi, quickly tell me, how did my brother defeat that bandit leader? How would I know? I was tied up in a room far away. I couldn't see anything. Sister, are you hurt? Iron Egg, don't worry. I'm fine. Li Zixuan heard their conversation from afar and thought to himself, are these two brats done yet? According to their questions, I won't have a chance to be alone with Han Yushi today. He had to think of a way to send them away. Young master. Master. Brother. When the three of them saw Li Zixuan coming over, they all stood up and greeted him. Li Zixuan nodded and asked casually, well, Iron Egg, Lan Er, have you memorized the previous multiplication table? Master, we have memorized it. Well, have you done the exercises after class? Li Zixuan put his hands behind his back and looked like a strict teacher teaching his disciples. Master, not yet. Iron Egg scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Then go and do the exercises after class for the first chapter. I will check it tonight. Tomorrow, Iron Egg, you will go to the Imperial College with me after you finish practicing. Li Zixuan silently gave himself 32 likes for his wit. Since he was going to teach a group of brats, it wouldn't be illegal to bring his disciples along, right? Yes, master. Iron Egg was a little reluctant. He hadn't seen his sister for a long time. In the morning, he was practicing and listening to classes. In the afternoon, he finally had time to talk for a while, but he couldn't ignore his master's words. He could only go back unhappily. Humph. Smelly brother, Lan Er wants to go tomorrow too. Li Zixuan thought for a while and said, okay, as long as Lan Er can do 90% of the exercises correctly, I will let you go. Okay. It's a deal. Lan Er smiled slyly and followed Iron Egg to do the exercises. Li Zixuan saw that they had gone far away and laughed. He sat down on the bench next to Han Yushi. Han Yushi was shocked and quickly moved to the side. Li Zixuan touched his nose and said gloomily, why are you moving so far away? Am I that scary? When Han Yushi heard this, her ears were dyed red. She said in a low voice, young master, others will gossip if they see us. Li Zixuan glanced around and said with a smile, hee, don't be afraid. There's no one in this courtyard. Didn't I just send Lan or Iron Egg and the others away? Yushi, did you miss me today? I haven't seen you all morning. Han Yushi was stunned. She didn't expect Li Zixuan to be secretly scheming when he pretended to be a strict teacher lecturing his disciples. Then, she was embarrassed again and said in a mosquito-like voice, young master, how can you say such shameful things? Li Zixuan saw that Han Yushi's cheeks were red and she was about to bury her head in her chest. Only then did he realize that he had indeed been a little complacent. This was ancient times. Although the women of the Tang Dynasty were more open than the women of the Song and Ming dynasties, they were still not comparable to modern times. However, it was not good for this girl to be too shy. He had to train her slowly when he married her in the future. Yushi, how did you feel when you went to the Qin family this morning? It was impossible to train a shy girl into a modern girl in a day. Li Zixuan had to change the topic. Han Yushi looked up at Li Zixuan and said, well, my foster mother treats me very well. She even asked me to visit her often. Oh, that's good. Li Zixuan quietly moved his butt towards her and whispered in Han Yushi's ear, Yushi, I told my mother about us yesterday. Han Yushi was shocked by Li Zixuan, who suddenly came up to her. When she heard his words, her heart couldn't help but tighten. She quickly focused and waited for the rest of the story. Li Zixuan smiled in his heart and continued, "My mother said that she would send a matchmaker to your house to propose marriage in the next 2 days. As long as your father agrees, the auspicious date will be set." Han Yushi's heart was immediately filled with sweetness. She ignored her shyness and raised her head to look at Li Zixuan affectionately. She said softly, "Young master has saved Yushi's life more than once. You don't mind Yushi's humble background and marry Yushi. Yushi will definitely help young master in the future. We will never leave each other and follow each other in life and death." Although her voice was soft, it was sonorous and powerful. It was as serious as if she was making a grand vow. Oh my God, who said that ancient women didn't know how to say romantic words? Li Zixuan's heart melted in an instant. He couldn't help but hug Han Yushi and let her lean on his shoulder. He sniffed the fragrance of her hair and said gently, "Silly girl, who dares to say that your status is humble? You are Uncle Qin's foster daughter now. Besides, even if you are just a commoner, I am still willing to marry you. I only like you as a person. I don't care about being well matched in terms of social status. When we are married, I don't want you to follow me in life and death. We will live well. I will take you to travel all over the world, eat all the delicacies in the world, and be a celestial couple for 100 years. Han Yushi was shocked by the future life that Li Zixuan described. She said longingly, "Young master, you are so good. But how can a person live for so long? Besides, after a few decades, Yushi will become an old woman. Will young master still like her? Haha, won't I become an old man by then? Don't be afraid, I will be crazy for you for 1,000 years. You will be with me for 10,000 reincarnations." Li Zixuan was full of heroism and laughed loudly. "I will be crazy for you for 1,000 years. You will be with me for 10,000 reincarnations." Han Yushi muttered for a while. She couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into tears. "Young master, Yushi wants to marry you now. Boo-hoo, a good Yushi, don't cry." Li Zixuan hurriedly hugged Han Yushi and coaxed her anxiously. As for whether he was taking advantage of her, only he knew in his heart. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.